Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Paul Young, Mayor of the City of Memphis, and it is such an honor to be able to welcome you here virtually and with great Memphis pride to one of the most sacred places in American history, right here at the National Civil Rights Museum. Sitting here today, we're reminded that Memphis is not just a city with a powerful past, but it's a city that's committed to a purpose-driven future. It's a true privilege to join this group of distinguished leaders, icons in the movement for justice and opportunity. My friend, Mr. John Hope Bryant, founder and CEO, chairman of Operation Hope, Dr. Bernice A. King, CEO of the King Center, and the living legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Ambassador Andrew J. Young, chair of the Andrew J. Young Foundation, who's going to be guiding today's conversation. On behalf of the entire city of Memphis, I want to say thank you and I want to welcome you. Memphis has always been a place of profound transformation. It's where music redefined culture, where movement built momentum, and where innovation from industry to activism has shaped history. And today that spirit continues. The Dream Forward initiative by Operation Hope represents the next chapter of that story. It's a movement that's committed to expanding economic opportunity, financial empowerment, and hope in communities that have too often been left behind. We're proud to be a partner in this work because here in Memphis, we believe that legacy means responsibility. It means building on the courage of those that came before us and making sure that progress is more than just a promise. Memphis is also home to some of the most iconic and influential institutions in America. This is where FedEx revolutionized global logistics, where AutoZone was born and grew into a national leader, where St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gives hope to families around the world, where emerging technologies like XAI are taking shape in Southwest Memphis, and where the Memphis Grizzlies bring energy and unity to our entire region. We're the home of Sun Studio, Beale Street, Graceland, and Stax Museum of American Soul Music. We're known for our legendary barbecue, our historic neighborhoods and neighbors, and for being the cradle of so many of the country's most powerful cultural movements. We're a city with creativity in our soul and purpose in our hearts and our eyes on the future. We're also a city with residents who need this discussion, who are seeking more opportunities. So as you all engage in today's conversation, I invite you to think about Memphians, to feel the energy of Memphis, its soul, its struggle, the strength of our city. Memphis is wide open to dreamers, doers, and difference makers. And if you want to change the world, if you want to find some place to plant your dream, we want to tell you welcome home. So thank you, Dr. John Hope Bryant, for being here, and let's get this conversation started.
Dr. Bryant, I got a promotion.
I just upgraded you. Yeah.
I'm honored to be here with you, Mayor. If it wasn't for you, I could never have been here because it had to be at your invitation. I think it's beautiful, by the way, that it's full circle, you know, rainbows after storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It's a scientific fact. You have these elected officials in the 50s and the 60s in this city who basically said, over my dead body, will you have justice and access and opportunity? And here we are with a black mayor, or a great mayor who happens to be black. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I want to thank, I'll be doing this throughout the program, but Charlemagne Nagard helped me with some initial thinking to get me focused on this business plan for America. Roland Martin irritated me, the heck out of me, to tell me to do this on April 4th. I said the most loving way possible. I thank him for that. And a lot of heroes and sheroes inspired this moment. But as I walked in the National Civil Rights Museum, which is where we are, you know it as a Lorraine Motel. My heart filled because it wasn't just black people in the hallways in the museum. It was every race of people. All people recognize the value of what Dr. King gave his life for 57 years ago today. And they were here. They weren't here for this conversation. They were just here. And that gives me great hope. Ambassador Young, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, my mentor, our global spokesman, my personal hero, he would say coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. I came in from New York, and last night there was hurricane warnings in Memphis. When Dr. King and Andrew Young, Ralph Abernathy traveled here on April 3rd, 1968, there were hurricane warnings in Memphis. They were grounded in Atlanta, which is where I came from. There was a bomb threat on the plane. They had to search the whole plane, delayed it. But there were travel warnings about whether they could get here and whether the weather would prohibit him. But Dr. King was undeterred. And he got here, and the next morning the sun came out. The sun came out today.
Yeah.
I walked through the same hallways, the same airport terminal. And the new airport terminal was beautiful, by the way. But outside is basically looks the same
It does.
as when Dr. King and Andrew Young walked into that car. I want to thank, he's not here today, but Brian Jordan, who runs First Tennessee Bank, our lead director, who is a traditional Southerner. He and I got together 8 years ago and collaborated to put a plaque in the airport on Dr. King's last plane ride to Memphis. He came here of his own will and left here to join the heavens. But that just shows you how everybody can work together.
Yeah.
And I learned that from Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young. So without further ado, the man who, I'm going to try to get through this without getting too emotional. We all owe this man a great debt. By the way, it's not just a national virtual town hall. I just got a call from South Africa, from the sixth richest man in Africa, Shrab Masiyiwa, who I believe is joining us. The Bill Gates of Africa, what some would call him. He's watching, other people are watching. This is a global town hall. But this is only possible because Andrew Young and Dr. King gave their lives. And Ambassador Young was a strategist for Dr. King, the last living close lieutenant of Dr. King. We would know him as ambassador. He was the first Black UN ambassador. He was the mayor for 2 terms in Atlanta, brought the Olympics to Atlanta, turned the only mayor ever mentored by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. of any city, turned Atlanta to the only international city in the traditional South, focused on the green, not the black or the white or the red or the blue, the green, and a city too busy to hate, him, Maynard Jackson, and others. Today, Atlanta is a $550 billion economy, the same size economy as Singapore, where I was 2 weeks ago. That's amazing. 10th largest economy in the US. That's the city that Andrew Young built, international city that Andrew Young built, carrying on Dr. King's unfinished work, which was about economics and public policy. And he was on that balcony when Dr. King was assassinated. And he probably doesn't want me saying this, but he was told years later by folks with information that the instructions for the shooter was, if you miss the dreamer, kill the strategist, which is why he can't sleep and why he's given his whole life so that you might have one. So all of us, can we just say thank you to a living legend, the closest thing we've got to Nelson Mandela, Ambassador Andrew Young.
Yes.
We also have joining us, before Ambassador Young speaks, we have joining us my dear friend, I call her my sister, Dr. Bernice. Now she is a doctor, Dr. Bernice A. King, who is the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the CEO of the King Center, who works for free. Everybody don't know that. She works for $1 at the King Center, gets no credit for it, gets a lot of grief, and we need to give her our support. She's never embarrassed us. She's never embarrassed the legacy. We can change our name. We can go do something else, get married, go on about our business. She can't. And she doesn't resent it. She doesn't regret it. She doubles down on it. And without her and you and Ambassador Young, this would not happen today. She is brilliant, and she'll be launching a 100th birthday anniversary for her father, which includes a partnership with Operation Hope to create bank accounts for kids in 100 cities across America. I know that we'll partner with you on that regard. But without further ado, my hero, our global spokesman, Ambassador Andrew Young.
Thanks a lot, John. And let me be very quick, because I never think of this as a day of assassination. I think in this situation, it's almost as though the resurrection got along before the assassination and crucifixion. And because I had been with Dr. King, I just came out of the courtroom to tell him that we had won the right to march. And he said, but you should check in with me. And I said, how can I check in with you? You know, there are no phones in a federal courtroom. And somebody said, oh, you're a little smart ass. And next thing I knew, somebody had thrown a pillow at me, and he picked the pillow up and he was pillow whipping me. And I'd never seen him act so full of fun and full of life. But his brother was there, a number of the ministers that he went to school with, and he was what we used to call freedom high. And someone knocked on the door and said, it's time for you all to get ready to go to dinner. And he said, let me get up and put on my shirts. And he went upstairs, and I went behind him, and I tried to tell him that he needed more than a shirt and coat, that he needed a top coat because it was a little chilly that evening. But while he was sitting there, raising his head to check on his view of the weather, the shot rang out. Now, I was there and watching it, but I also had enough education to realize that bullets in those kinds of circumstances travel faster than the speed of sound. So yes, he was shot, but I don't think he ever heard the sound. It severed his spinal cord. So I don't think he felt any pain. And I saw him laying there in his own blood. But for me, he was not laying there, because I looked across the river, Mississippi River, in the distance. And I really remember the day in Sunday school when they told me that Elisha went to heaven on a flaming chariot. And I was a smart ass then 10 years old and said, I don't believe that. And then all of a sudden, that verse came back to me. And I, to this day, feel that Martin Luther King never felt a pain. He never knew the agony of death, and that it was a quick transformation, a flaming chariot onto the future. And so everything I've done then and since then, and we had talked the night before he came to Memphis about taking the movement into politics. And I thought we were just talking. But when he was killed, I ended up being in the front of a bunch of his friends, and they turned to me and said, well, it looks like you're going to have to run for Congress or something. I said, why me? And he said, well, you agreed with Dr. King that we should sift this movement from the streets and the politics. And I said, yeah, that's what we should do. And he said, well, nobody wants to do it, so it looks like it's up to you. Now, I didn't do it, and they give me too much credit, but we've had 9 black mayors in a row here in Atlanta. We've had, we were just a little shy of 1 million people at the time of Dr. King's death. And now we're pushing close to 7 million in the perimeter and the surrounding area that makes up Atlanta. We've had one of the world's biggest Olympics. We still run the world's busiest airport, 114 million passengers a year. Second in airports is Beijing in China, and they were just 80 million passengers a year. But when we built the Olympics, when we built that airport, we built it so that we started with 25% of the work being done by Black entrepreneurs, Black and female, because there were no women who were doing work for the city until we realized we had a parking lot and had forgotten to let the contracts. And so we got the first white woman a contract with the city. But Atlanta has grown and burgeoned, and I think we have turned the movement toward politics. So when you talk about raising economic level of an entire nation, an entire people, I don't think you're blowing smoke. I think you're dreaming the dream that Martin Luther King left us with. And I think it's just a matter of time and dedication before we see those dreams come true too.
Ambassador Young, thank you for that. With all these speakers, we're not going to have enough time for all of them because we got so many heroes and sheroes to get to, and we got Bernice King we're about to go to now. But Ambassador Young, just very quickly, the night before, thank you for your remarks. We could spend the whole session just with you, by the way. And we want to thank Mayor Andre Dickens, who's a virtual delegate, who's on the line, who's continuing your legacy, doing a great job as mayor. We have a child savings accounts with him, working with Dr. Bernice King, Hope Savings Accounts, so thank him as well. Ambassador Young, just 1 second on this. The night before the assassination is the only time I saw him. I might be mistaken. He was at Mason Temple here in Memphis. He wasn't supposed to speak. Well, he was supposed to speak, but he was tired. He was worn out. Abernathy U, I think, by the way, we give Reverend Jesse Jackson his flowers, who I think is watching. Reverend Jackson went over to Mason Temple to try to speak on his behalf. The crowd wasn't having it. It was raining. They invited Ambassador Young to come. He called Dr. King to come at the last minute. You guys called him. I think Abernathy called him. He went there, and it was the only time I saw him collapse after a speech. He gave that mountaintop speech and literally collapsed in the arms of you and the aides. It was almost like he realized what was coming and was at peace with it very quickly. Is that accurate, or am I off base?
No, that's accurate, because this was probably his third time back in Memphis. Now, it's understandable that he went once to march with the garbage workers, the sanitation workers, but he went 3 times and he kept going back. And I have decided that he knew his death was imminent. And he didn't want it to happen in the big cities in the north. He wanted to identify with the least of these God's children. And he found these sanitation workers. First of all, they weren't dumb, they were smart.
Yeah.
In fact, they still run the city garbage systems in Atlanta, in Memphis. And many of them, last time I was there, I met one that was 84 years old, still driving the garbage truck. And I said, "Why don't you retire?" And he said, "We never got a retirement out of that struggle." So the dream and the problems of Martin Luther King are still very much with us. And I thank you for taking us. And Bernice.
Yeah, Bernice King, Dr. Bernice King, the continuation in a very real sense of this legacy and bloodline. You are such an underrated, underappreciated force of nature. Dr. Bernice King, Attorney Bernice King, CEO of the King Center, over to you. Daughter of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King.
Thank you so much, John. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Thank you so much. I am honored to be co-convening this with you and Mayor Young and my Uncle Andy, Ambassador Andrew Young. Obviously, today, as always, is a very emotional day for me as the last born child of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the progress we've made, and I'm concerned, as he said on that last night, that we have difficult days ahead. But I'm also hopeful because of what we're doing today. And I think about my mother, Mrs. Coretta Scott King, who really exemplified how to turn grief into a mission. And so today, as we unfortunately remember what happened, we also don't just focus on the man, we focus on the mission. And John, thank you for galvanizing us with the mayor and Ambassador Young, with the influence of Charlemagne the God and Roland Martin as he pushes so many of us. And so I'm joining you today from the King Center in Atlanta, which is the official living memorial to the life, work, and legacy of my father. We are doing the work of trying to help people to navigate through very difficult situations, personally and socially, through the philosophy and methodology of nonviolence. And I'm at the place, which is the final resting place of my parents, and we will be laying a wreath later on at 3:30 Eastern this afternoon. So the work of justice that my father began, as we have said, is unfinished, and the dream that he carried is now ours to move forward. Many of you know that my father spent his life seeking to eradicate what he called the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. However, when most people think of my father, they focus on his work around racial justice, his leadership during the civil rights movement, his powerful words, and his unwavering commitment to dismantling segregation. But few recognize that he was just as fierce in his fight for economic justice and empowerment, that he believed that true freedom required not only equality under the law, but access to fair wages, jobs, and opportunities that could give people control over their financial destiny. We know that 50 years ago, today, my father was assassinated in Memphis, where he had come to stand alongside, as Uncle Andy mentioned, Black sanitation workers who courageously declared, "I am a man, demanding dignity, fair wages, and respect." He stood with them because he understood that knew that labor rights, fair wages, and economic empowerment were not separate from civil rights. They were foundational to justice itself. He recognized that the struggle was not just about labor rights, it was about economic justice, the very foundation of a truly equal society. He declared in his words, the struggle for rights is at bottom a struggle for power, and that we must develop massive action programs to bring about economic reforms that will sustain equality. That's why the work that we're talking about today is so critical and important. He also understood that economic justice meant more than jobs, it meant true empowerment. As he wrote in Where Do We Go From Here, the book that was published shortly before he was assassinated, he warned us that the curse of poverty is not just that people lack money, but that they lack the capacity to control their destiny. That truth remains urgent today as inequality persists, as systems continue to deny opportunity to many based on race, gender, ability, income, and zip code. He also understood that economic justice was not a separate struggle from racial justice. He called them the inseparable twins, knowing that the promise of equality remains hollow when families cannot afford to eat, when laborers are exploited, and when prosperity is concentrated in the hands of a few, while many struggle to survive. And that the struggle for equality cannot be complete until every person, Black, white, brown, has the means to care for their families and participate in the fullness of society. In that final speech on April 3rd, 1968, the night before he was taken from us so early, he spoke of going up to the mountaintop and looking over and seeing that promised land. That promised land for him was not simply about racial justice, it was about economic justice, a future where the inseparable twins of racism and poverty were overcome and where all people shared in the wealth of the earth. He knew that a movement for justice had to go beyond integration. It had to demand equity. And so 57 years ago, he was deep in the work of developing a business plan for Black America. His vision was not only about legal rights, but about creating pathways for sustainable economic independence and interdependence. He was crafting an economic infrastructure for Black communities, building a strategy for empowerment, economic self-determination, and financial justice. He knew that racial equality meant little if Black communities lacked access to economic opportunity, if systemic barriers kept them from building wealth and shaping their own future. When he and members of SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, launched Operation Breadbasket in 1962, it was about an inclusive economy. He saw the economic exclusion of Black Americans and poor communities as a direct contradiction of the ideals of justice. And through Operation Breadbasket, he challenged corporations to include Black workers in their employment ranks, not just through token hiring, but through real training, skill development, and investment in Black businesses and communities. He understood that to dismantle systemic inequality, Black workers had to be positioned in industries that could transform communities economically. He declared the dignity of the individual will flourish when the decisions concerning his life are in his own hands. When he and the SCLC launched the Poor People's Campaign, which Operation Hope is a part of continuing that work, and also Reverend William Barber, it was an extension of this economic plan. It was designed to bring national attention to the urgent need for economic restructuring, calling for better wages, more jobs, and policies that would ensure long-term financial security for poor communities across racial lines. He knew that poverty was not a matter of individual failure, but a structural issue. As he put it, it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Through the Poor People's Campaign, they sought to eradicate poverty as a moral crisis, a blight on a nation capable of more. And when he stood in Memphis with sanitation workers, he was doing more than supporting a local strike. He was emphasizing a national economic movement. Those men who carried the burdens of your city, Marion, they were denied fair wages and benefits, but they represented millions of Black workers across America facing economic justice. My father's support of their cause was not just about one workplace. It was about building a framework for fair wages, labor rights, and business inclusion that could uplift generations. And on the night before he was assassinated, he made a direct appeal, telling those gathered in Memphis to support Black banks and insurance companies. And here's the most important part. He said, stick together. When he said, if something happens to me, don't stop here in Memphis.
Yeah.
He was urging us. He was urging America not to abandon the quest for an inclusive economy. And yes, something happened in Memphis 50 years ago today, April 4th, 1968. And tragically, there is unfinished business we must attend to. Today, as we shape the future of economic inclusion, we must look to those industries that will define tomorrow. We'll be talking about that today. Artificial intelligence, automation, and emerging technologies are transforming the workforce. And just as my father fought for Black workers to be trained for new jobs in his time, we must demand that marginalized communities, especially Black and brown communities, are given training and access to jobs in AI and future-focused industry. My mother, Coretta Scott King, carried that vision forward, reminding us that struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. This generation's struggle must include ensuring that Black and underserved communities are positioned to thrive in the future economy. So we join together today to carry forward my father's economic business plan, to complete the work he began. Let's ensure that economic justice is not just a dream deferred, but a reality fulfilled. Let us build a future where those of us in the Black communities have the infrastructure, access, and investment to control our destiny, and continue to strengthen not only our community, but the national and global economy. I'm honored to be here. I'm glad we're together today to do just as he said. Don't stop in Memphis. We're in Memphis, but as we leave today, we will continue the quest to create an inclusive economy.
Oh, God bless you. God bless you, Bernice. Thank you. And now you know why I think she's brilliant. That's my honorary sister, and she's amazing. And by the way, if you want to make a donation today, don't do it to Operation Hope. The mayor doesn't need it. Maybe he does, but do it to the King Center. Make a donation to the King Center if you want to make a donation so she can continue this work. If you want to make a commitment to the work to do something on the business plans that dropped today, by the way, the new business plans that the framework, which I mostly wrote, so if you don't like them, you can blame it on me, and will be refined over time. But you can go to the website right now and download those sites. They're completely open source, and I hope, Dr. Bernice King, we've done you some pride. Thanks for continuing this legacy. Now that all the other speakers, we have something very special coming to you right now. He's been waiting. To all the other speakers, the only person who got to read a speech is Dr. Bernice A. King. That's it. And for every reason, you know, she was worth every moment of it. Everything else is going to be what I call a jump ball conversation. And here we go. Sam, thanks for waiting. I'm sure you understand why you had to wait. That was actually one of Dr. King's books as well. Speak Why We Can't Wait. Sam Altman is my friend. He is, you're gonna make this a little uncomfortable for you, Sam, but I think it's true. I think you're the Steve Jobs of this generation. I think you're a decent human being who cares. I love when I talk to you and I ask you about AI and you don't have all the answers. When we first started the artificial intelligence conversations at Clark Atlanta University with Dr. George French, who's one of our delegates today, along with the other HBCU presidents, you talked about the promise of AI, but you also said there might be problems with AI that you could not guard against or promise it was not be unintentional negative consequences. And that made me trust you even more. Our conversation in your office in San Francisco, which I won't share, but where you were very vulnerable. And we talked candidly about the problems and the opportunities. We co-chair the AI Ethics Council together. You've supported our work with the AI LP3, which is out of Atlanta, with Dean Phillips, who's on now from Georgia State University Business School, where we're trying to create a pipeline of prosperity of young people up and through AI, not just being fired because of AI, but to create jobs and opportunities. Thanks for your support for that. You were the first donor on AI to Operation Hope for transparency. So we're embedding AI into how we do business. You were smart enough to bring Sarah Fryer on as your CFO, who is my dear friend. So Sam, where do we go from here? Van Jones has said 99% of black folks don't know a thing about AI, and 99% of white folks don't know a thing about AI either. So we're all starting at the same place, but by 2030, the whole world's going to change, in my opinion. Where do we go from here, and how can we use this as a force for good?
Yeah, I do think we're in the middle of a legitimate technological revolution. I think this looks like it's a very big one. I think we have much further to go, but already it's something that people are using a lot in everyday life. Hundreds of millions of people using it. People are doing better work. They're learning faster. It's transforming how healthcare works. It's creating unbelievable new economic opportunity. And I am hopeful that this will be a real time for an inclusive reset in the world. It's such a big deal. It's such a big change that I think all of the normal, everything is kind of up for grabs. And I think this is very much a deeply democratizing technology. And we can sort of figure out what it means to enable everyone in the world all at once. And I think we're starting to see that with how people are using ChatGPT, but it can go much, much further.
You're the CEO of OpenAI, which is arguably the leader in this space today. I have written this business plan for different groups: business plan for rural America, business plan for women, business plan for Latinos, Native Americans, a business plan for Black America. In the business plan for Black America that I wrote, and there's one for everybody, let's just talk about the business plan for America, but the one on Black America, I've estimated with the help, by the way, of your technology, that there's about $1 trillion that's possible in increased wealth creation for Black America between now and 2053 if we embrace artificial intelligence. Now, there's some other buckets of activity, which I'll get into. I won't waste our time on that here. But just the bucket of AI, if we do nothing, Black America will have a net worth of 0 by 2053. If we do nothing with what we're doing right now. And then there's some, there's credit scores, there's home ownership, small business ownership, but one of the biggest groups of opportunity is artificial intelligence at $1 trillion. What does some of that opportunity look like in your opinion, Sam?
This is, I'm a little biased because I spent so much of my life thinking about entrepreneurship, but what AI is doing for entrepreneurship is really quite amazing. I am hopeful that it means that people can start companies and do things that they never could before. We hear stories all the time from people using even ChatGPT in its current early form to run their entire business, to people to start companies that they just never thought they could before. People saying they have the leverage of a whole team of people before, and that kind of whatever they can think of, AI will increasingly be able to do. And I really care about entrepreneurship because I think it's the best way that we make the world better for everybody else. If we have more people, more ideas, being able to bring those ideas to life and get them to market faster, cheaper, and better, I think that's a huge thing. There will be many other areas that AI is important for, what it will do for education, for healthcare. There's a lot of talk about these, but what it's going to do for entrepreneurship is something that I am personally very excited about, and I think it can make entrepreneurship more inclusive than it's ever been before.
Hey, Sam, this is Memphis Mayor Paul Young, excited to be able to have a conversation with you today. Here in Memphis, there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and the infrastructure around it. What advice would you give to city leaders like myself that's mayor of a city where we have this infrastructure coming into the community? How can our people take advantage of this technology long term? And I mean job creation. What are the jobs that exist in the development of artificial intelligence that cities like Memphis can capitalize on?
And Sam, after this, answer the mayor's question. I know you've got to go. Thanks for squeezing it in. By the way, congratulations on your new member of the family. And after you answer this question, I'd like for you to think in the next month about writing a paper that we can put on the website that people can download that gives people more of your insight into the future of how underserved communities can embrace AI. But over to the mayor.
Everybody. So I think the most important thing for people to do is to just embrace the tools. I think the biggest predictor of people that are going to be successful with AI, to contribute to it, to benefit from it, probably is just getting familiar with the tools. Yeah. I remember, when computer programming was becoming a big thing, the best advice was to learn to program. I think the best advice right now is to learn to use AI. If you do that, if you get familiar with the tools, you'll have a good sense for what the big opportunities are, how to benefit from it, also what the flaws with the technology are and where you can contribute to working on it. What else needs to be built as part of the sort of like AI ecosystem. I think there is still fear of AI and confusion, but the more you use it, the more it goes away. And it's really easy to start using these tools, and they're becoming quite widely used. So by far, my number one piece of tactical advice is just, find ways to use the tools in your life.
Sam, love you, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Write the paper.
I don't know if I can, but I'll think about it. I got to figure out what to say first.
Okay.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. Thank you, Sam. That was amazing. Sam is literally leading this new revolution of everything. I think AI is going to literally change everything. If I had to encourage you to focus on two things, it would be financial literacy as a civil rights issue of this generation. And by the way, thank you, the National Urban League. Mark Morial was on, president. Thank you, the NAACP, Derek. Thank you, Al Sharpton and Reverend Jesse Jackson's, all the heroes and sheroes who helped to get us here. We're standing on all of those shoulders. I know Reverend Jackson's watching. I just got a note from his son. But financial literacy, I think is the civil rights issue of this generation, and AI literacy. Those are two things that after you deal with your civil rights, you need to adopt your civil rights right now. And on that point, I get to join my friend Kevin Boucher. Are we going to Doug or going to the Sunda? All right, because I'm trying to be respectful here. I'm shutting up actually because I see the CEO of the $2 trillion company online, and I think we should want to hear from her. I'm going to shut up and let the moderator speak. Frank, you got to tell me to be quiet.
Hey, John, number one, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Mr. Mayor, it's a pleasure to be here with you as well. Thank you, everybody, for letting me be a part of this moment. We're going to get to our panel right now. It's titled A Moment of Truth, Assessing the Economic Landscape. We're going to talk about some of that economic uncertainty that's currently really impacting America. This panel of business and policy leaders, we're going to analyze today's economic climate and its specific impacts on underrepresented communities. We're also going to talk about the immediate realities, potential economic shifts, and maybe most importantly, John, the critical opportunities for economic advancement. So with no further ado, I'm going to introduce the members of this panel. We have Thasunda Brown Duckett, the president and CEO of TIAA, the Honorable Mick Mulvaney, co-chair of Actum, also the former White House chief of staff, Joseph Otting, executive chair, president and CEO of Flagstar Financial, also the 31st U.S. comptroller of the currency, and Steve Steiner, chairman, president and CEO of Huntington Bank. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Steiner, I know you have to get going very shortly, so I'm just going to begin with you first. There's a lot to talk about, and obviously a lot of news about the economy and some big shifts. How does the current economic environment, how does it uniquely impact Americans in the bottom two quartiles or in middle income families and lower income families?
Frank, I understand that Steve Steiner was having some technical difficulties. He may or may not be on. So.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be there.
He's been texting me for some reason. He couldn't get on.
Okay, well, we're going to hopefully involve him in the conversation, but Ms. Brown Duckett, we're going to come over to you. The same question, some of these big economic shifts, how do you see it impacting middle-income families and lower-income families?
Yeah, thank you. And John, just thank you so much for the invitation on this historic day. It really means a lot, and it's such an important conversation as you think about the work that you and so many others have and continue to do.
You're living history, Thasunda.
When I think about the question, I think what's on the minds of everyone, if there was one word, it would be uncertainty. And it's not just looking at it at the macro level, it's looking at what it means at the household level. And when you think about the lower two quartiles, you're talking about really tough trade-offs. You're talking about the inflationary pressures, you're talking about the concerns of tariffs, you're talking about job uncertainty, you're talking about the transformation that's happening around the marketplace. And I also think that the impossible trade-offs are where people are having to have conversations between gas, rent, food, and do I continue to invest? Do I stay invested? Can I afford to continue to contribute to my retirement? And so I think some of the biggest concerns that we have, particularly those in the lower two quartiles, is the lack of buffer. When you are navigating market volatility, higher income earners have a sound buffer to navigate through. I think what we have to be mindful of is how do we help everyday Americans ensure that the short-term trade-off does not lead to long-term impact that goes directly to your stat, John, when you think about the negative net worth. And so I do think we have to ensure that the decisions are well thought of. I think it's a very important time that we are educating and reaching out to people, re-examining their balance sheet so that they can navigate this environment, but also make sure that they can navigate it in a way that they're not compromising their future retirement or compromising their future ability to transfer, assets to their family. So it's a real issue. It's a real problem for everyday Americans, a lot of anxiousness. And I think it's the role of all of us to make sure we're doing everything that we can to help people stay the course and navigate some pretty difficult times for lower income workers.
Well, thank you for that answer. Mick Mulvaney, I'm going to come over to you now. Same question.
Yeah, I'm concerned. The tariffs bother me when it comes to the impact on the bottom two quartiles of the economy. Tariffs are a sales tax. You could argue whether or not they're going to be a dollar for dollar sales tax. If you add $1 of tariff, does it actually go to $1 of the price of a good? There's all sorts of arguments as to whether or not that's the case, but it's going to be an increase in some fashion. And sales taxes are regressive, and they hit the lower income quartiles more than they do the upper income quartiles. I mean, most people watching this show right now, this presentation, can make discretionary decisions about how to spend their money. The car, you know, maybe they buy a new car, maybe they don't. If you're in the bottom 2/5 and your car breaks down, you don't have a choice. And you're going to have to pay the higher tariffs. You have to pay the higher tariffs for a new car, a used car, even the old parts for your old car. It's going to be a disproportionate impact on the lower 2/5. That being said, if I wanted to take the other side of the argument, I think that the president is desperately trying to rebuild the American middle class through American manufacturing, and that would dramatically help the bottom 2/5. So, he's sort of gambling here, and let's hope he's correct. But as I sit here and look at just the last 48 hours, my answer to this question was different 2 days ago. But just in the last 48 hours, I look at this with a great deal of concern over the impact on the folks at the bottom of the economic ladder.
Joseph Otting, coming over to you. Same question. Obviously, you have a lot of exposure to people of a range of incomes operating a bank.
Okay. Thank you very much, Frank. And John Bryant, good friend and leader in the Operation Hope team. Thanks for making this event possible. I know you did it under short conditions. It's really an honor to be here and celebrate the great contributions made to America by Dr. King. His principles of hope for all, economic justice, a nonviolent world, and freedom were really true 56 years ago, and they're just as evident and true today. I echo Mick's thoughts a little bit as I was preparing for my comments 3 days ago. They do take a slight turn, I think, today as well. And as we came into this week, I think there were clear aspects where, certain parts of the economy were starting to feel the stress of high inflation. Those are evidenced by, people's credit cards being high balances and past due mortgages, past due auto loans, and the impact that has, where, as Ms. Brown said, the ability for those homes to sit around the table and decide which bills they're going to pay and which ones they can pass on. And frequently that does not get resolved because there isn't a savings in those families and the buffer is not there. I do think, we're at a critical juncture here. And while the last 24 hours has driven down interest costs and has driven down energy prices, it'll take a vibrant economic environment where employment remains strong and people can self-select into new jobs for us to be able to kind of get out of this hole. So I do think this is a very pivotal time. As the other panelists have said, usually the negative economic impact are felt on the lower end of the economic scale. And we have been, I think, in that period of time for the last 6 to 9 months.
You both said that your view of things changed in the last couple of days. Obviously, a big announcement when it comes to tariffs. And then today we had the jobs report that was actually stronger than expected. Yep. Shanda, coming over to you. What economic indicators are you looking at as a possible predictor of improvement or more challenges for the bottom 2 quartiles?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the jobs are really important to see what's happening. And so I think it is positive, at least now, to see that it's pretty strong. I think the other piece is consumer spending data. Definitely gives us insight into financial confidence or stress consumers are experiencing. Delinquency rates are also, very important. I know John talks about the importance of a high credit score. And so the need to understand what's happening with delinquencies, I think can be an important watch item. So far, I'd say delinquency rates has risen a bit, particularly on credit cards, but they're still historically low. But I do think, given the market uncertainty, it's a watch item. And I would also say, just given, my focus in understanding retirement security, I do think there's an opportunity for us as leaders where we all have, 401k plans or 403b plans to make sure that we're looking at the data to see, are we seeing our own employees not contributing or reducing their contribution? Are we seeing hardship withdrawals increasing? And so I do think that there are indicators that we as employers can take a look to also complement what you're seeing at the macro level, what's happening with our own employee base, and are we seeing them taking advantage of access in a way that may have long-term stress in the system, particularly for the people that work incredibly hard for our organizations.
All right, sorry about that. I got some technical difficulties, got kicked out, but made my way back in. Mick, coming over to you, former White House Chief of Staff. Certainly, there's a lot of economic indicators that any president looks at for signs of stress in the economy. What are you looking at going forward? Obviously, consumer spending data is key, retail sales data is key. Are there other additional indicators that you watch?
Yeah, there's a couple ones that probably don't hit most people's radars. We follow them a little bit as a community, but we follow these fairly closely when I ran the Office of Management and Budget. One was the quit rate. The quit rate is that, the number of people who are disconnected from their jobs, separated from the job by their own free will. We loved to see that number going up, because what that spoke of was a confidence in the economy at the very basic level. And if you're looking for new business formation, the quit rate is something that we'd watch very closely. When it comes to unemployment, we didn't really, we pay attention to the unemployment rate. Everybody does, because it's sort of a top line number. But keep in mind, it's a quotient. It's the number of people looking for a job who don't have one. If you're not looking for a job, you don't count in the unemployment number. If none of the people on the screen here had a job, but none of us were looking for a job, the unemployment rate would be 0. So the number you really look at is that monthly number. Anything above 225 is usually a healthy number in our economy. If you start to see a couple of months below that, you can pay attention to the rate if you want to, but it's those numbers of jobs that are actually the hard number that we tracked a lot more closely at OMB. We also followed, believe it or not, we followed the SSDI claims, Social Security Disability Insurance claims. And if we saw those spike, oftentimes those are a substitute for folks who have run out of unemployment benefits. So those are the two maybe non-traditional numbers that we looked at that other folks don't look at, the quit rate and the SSDI claims rate.
All right, so really interesting. So it's still tied to the job market. Joe, coming over to you. You mentioned credit card delinquencies a bit earlier. What data do you focus on? And is there something coming up, whether it's the Fed, commentary and the J-Powell press conference? Is there something coming up that's going to give you a sense of the strength of the economy right now, or that you look to?
Yeah, I think the two prior panelists addressed the employment issue well, and I think Mick's comments are important. I think the other one in that bucket I would put is job openings. What does the job openings environment look like for people to go in either to new opportunities, and is that increasing or decreasing? And then to your question, Frank, we obviously continue to look very closely at interest rates and energy prices. We think those are big drivers, that have wide swaths in the economic environment. If people can either get into homes at, a 5% mortgage versus a 7%, that opens up a pretty significant path of people who could not afford a home at 7%, but they can at 5%. And if there's one kind of positive that's come out of this disruption, we've seen both in the 10 and the 5-year, which are frequent measures for home mortgage, that those rates have pulled back, anywhere from 50 to 80 basis points in the last week. So I think there's some optimism that those rates will be positively impacted into the mortgage marketplace.
We're almost out of time, so you have time for one more question. We're going to go around one more time. To Sunday, I'm going to come back over to you. Maybe one of the most important questions when it comes to all
Hey,
this.
Frank, hold on. Joseph, stop talking in Japanese. What's a basis point? People know what a basis point is. Joseph Otting, what's a basis point? Can you hear me? Joseph Otting?
Joe, I don't know if you can hear John. He's talking to you directly.
No,
Yeah.
What is
You're talking another language. He said basis points. We can't assume people understand these terms. By the way, there are thousands of people watching. It's being streamed by Roland Martin, streamed by Breakfast Club. I just got a note from the Connecticut Department of Corrections. They're streaming it. I love it. But please break this stuff down so everybody can understand. What's a basis point, Joseph?
Well, basis points is 100 basis points equals 1%. So when 10 basis points, that's 10 100ths of a percent.
Yeah. By the way, Joseph runs a $100 billion bank and is making huge commitments to Community Reinvestment Act. He's a fabulous leader who I trust. And for those who don't know what TIAA-CREF is, Thasunda Duckett is probably the most powerful woman in corporate, not just in corporate America, but in the world. Her platform is $2 trillion. Is that right?
Depends on the market. It's over $1.4 trillion, but we got to see what's happening in the market. It's probably a little less right now.
In regard, we're proud of you, and Mick Mulvaney is a fair dealer. He's a good man. We We don't agree on everything, but we agree on the most important things. We won't get into a debate about stuff we can't control today, but we even agreed on that about 2 weeks ago. Mick always tries to find the common ground, and whenever we disagree without being disagreeable. Most of that's on CNBC. Thank you, Mick. And thank you, Frank.
Oh, of course. Do we have time for one more question, John, or do we have to wrap this up?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
I'll stop talking.
I think it's you and the mayor's show. I think you talk as much as you want. One last question. The Sunday, we're going to begin with you. What are the greatest economic opportunities emerging right now?
Yeah, and I mean, it's in the plan, and John kicked it off. I do think that AI is just a tremendous opportunity, but it's not just AI itself, it's the entire ecosystem, around it. When you think about data centers, infrastructure, when you think about what it can fuel in terms of new job formations. And so that is something I think for all of us to get excited about. No, I also do think it's important to highlight that it will take public-private partnership to continue to drive long-term economic growth. And so I think as we think about things to be excited about, I'd say one, our economy long-term is resilient. And so though we have bumps, I think we play the long game. We still have innovation. We still have opportunities. Technology, I think, will be at the forefront of that growth, but policy will matter. And lastly, I would say, as I think through opportunities for economic growth that's emerging, that's a positive on the policy side, I do think public policy coming together around secure retirement. That is something that if we want to make sure that we can have healthy balance sheets for families, we have to make sure that people can have a secure retirement. And there's been some really good bipartisan policy to make it easier for everyday Americans to have access to workplace plans and making it easier for people to contribute. And so I do think what that can create allows people to not have to transfer that burden to their families, their children, in order to stimulate the economy. I think you have to have a strong retirement system in order to do that. But technology, I think, is underpinning real economic growth long term.
All right, Mick, same question. Where are you seeing emerging opportunities in this current environment?
I'm going to go very quickly, and I'm going to go the entire other end of the spectrum from what everybody else has said. I'm going to move as far away from AI as you can and get down to the micro trades. Jay Powell today got asked a question about the home building industry. There's a tremendous opportunity out there for folks in the bottom half of the economic ladder to lift themselves up through skilled trades. There's 5 trades. I'm a 3rd generation home builder. For every 5 tradesmen that retires this year, there'll be only 2 coming to take the place. It's a tremendous economic advantage. We need to figure out a way to still promote education and financial literacy for sure. But folks who work with their hands are going to be able to make a lot of money going forward to the next generation. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity that's being overlooked at the bottom half of the economic scale.
All right, Joe, you're up. We're not going to ask you to do any more definitions, but where are you seeing emerging opportunities?
There's going to be a test afterwards, Joseph.
I think Mick and Ms. Brown's comments were right on. But the one thing that I would add, which I think really makes a difference, is I'm a big believer of bringing underrepresented people into the work environment and giving them exposure. And whether that's summer events or holiday events where they get exposure to what a company looks like, what's the environment like, what's legal, what's HR, what's technology, and giving those people an opportunity to see a world that they're not exposed to. It's fundamental, but it changes people's dreams and aspirations. And while all the other stuff is important, I think frequently it starts at the individual level.
All right, we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Thank you both, or all 3 of you, I should say, for your time and for your insight. Thasunda Brown Duckett, President and CEO of TIAA. The Honorable Mick Mulvaney, co-chair of Active and former White House Chief of Staff, and Joseph Otting, Executive Chair, President, and CEO of Flagstar Financial, also the 31st U.S. Comptroller of the Currency. Thank you again. John, coming back over to you.
Frank, thank you. And really, you think about that group of panelists, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
You had government, you had, which is government receipts, taxes coming in because based on a growing economy. You had banking, financing that, and you had Thasunda Duckett, you have TIAA Craft managing investment portfolios. If you go now to My Business Plan of America, by the way, they're all available on the website now for Dream Forward. Go there, download them. They're free. They're completely as I wrote them. And now the Emory University Department of Economics and the Clark Atlanta School of Business are both going to be taking these plans along with 100 founding delegates who are watching online, by the way, and they'll be writing addendums and amendments to these plans and growing them over the preceding months. But all three of these are really foundational to that business plan. I'm now honored to, Mr. Mayor, to bring on somebody I really admire and respect. I actually call him my brother from another mother oftentimes, a man who grew up in, not just in Walmart, but I believe he was a box boy or something. I think he was like literally putting boxes on shelves. He'll have to tell me that, whether it's accurate. But you would know him as the chief executive officer of the #1 Fortune 500 company in America. And to give that some context for the audience, we're the largest economy in the world, America, 28, 29 trillion, at least for the moment. We're the sole superpower in the world for the moment. We got to try to make sure that this party keeps going. Obviously, that's what this meeting is about. It's going to take all of God's children to do that. And that means the companies in America are arguably the biggest in the world. And the #1 Fortune 500 company, which is the biggest companies, is Walmart, #1. And the chief executive officer of Walmart is Doug McMillon, who joins us today, who's co-chair with me on financial literacy for all. Doug, thank you for being with us.
Hi, John. Hi, Mayor Young. Thanks for the invitation.
Hello. Is it accurate that that you started pretty humbly, by the way, at Walmart?
Yeah, I started in a warehouse unloading trailers when I was a teenager, like a lot of us around here did. Start at the beginning.
Is it also true, and I want all the audiences to hear this, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate on this, but you're going to correct me. Is it also true you're the largest employer for African Americans by far in the United States of America?
It is true. In the U.S., we employ about 1.6 million people, and approximately 20% of those are Black or African American.
And is it true you pay them a living wage?
It is true that you can build a career at Walmart and have a great opportunity. The living wage definition depends on how many people are in your household and whether you're married or not and all that kind of stuff. But what we've been doing, John, I think, as you know, is putting together a series of steps to basically create a ladder of opportunity, raising wages for hourly associates, cash bonus, 401k. We've now got 1.1 million people participating in our 401k plan, which has got a company match, 475,000 people participating in our stock purchase plan. 81% of those are hourly. So paying now for college education, we pay for tuition and certificates so people can get the skills they need. Basically, just like the opportunity I was given, get in the company, get started, work hard, do a good job, and you can become a market manager and make $600,000 a year, or a store manager and make $500,000.
Whoa, back up, slow that down. That went too fast. Wait, slow that down. One more time, so folks in the back of the room can hear it. Did you just say that a manager can make over $500,000 a year?
I did. Our Walmart U.S. store managers now have that opportunity to earn a living, and half of them last year, John, made $100,000 as a cash bonus on top of that. You can be a truck driver in your first year, make $100,000 at Walmart.
I saw somewhere, and I don't know this is accurate. You have to correct me, Doug. We can talk about this. I saw somewhere, Mr. Mayor, that it is possible that you could run, I don't know if it was a mega store or a region, and in the next few years, you might make as much as $1 million a year. Did I read that wrong?
Yeah, it depends on which location you're in and what your cash bonus is. But yeah, there's a structure that enables you to do really well at store manager level.
So it's over $500,000 a year for sure. And in bonuses, and you're paying for the education, the college education for some of your associates?
We are, we pay for tuition, books, and everything. And we've already got tens of thousands of people that have graduated through what we call Live Better U. So again, trying to put it all together, and what you did for me, John, is, we had financial literacy education in the company, but when I started spending time with you, I started understanding that it didn't matter how much you made, you could still mess it up. You could still fail to succeed for your family if you didn't understand how money worked. So we went back and doubled down on financial literacy, and that's where Financial Literacy for All came from. You and I were talking about how pretty much every company has some sort of educational program for financial literacy, but maybe the CEOs weren't as focused on that as they could be, and maybe they could make the program a little bit better. And by doing that, they could help people succeed. And I had the benefit of having a dad and a granddad that taught me about the value of compounding interest and the importance of saving money, no matter how much money I made as a young person. If I could put a little bit aside, the time value of money would help make that into something meaningful. And so that's what we've been trying to say to everybody, whether you've started as a cashier or you started as a truck driver or now you're a store manager and you make a lot of money, here's how you should think about managing your money so you've got a bright retirement and a better life.
And when you look at Walmart, and I want to double down on the financial literacy piece, because you actually created a program that over 1 million of your associates have now engaged in, that actually does not involve Operation Hope. It was just you did it on your own initiative. Why'd you do that? Why wasn't you are giving them 401k match? By the way, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially the company willing to match you dollar for dollar for savings for the future, investment in your future. So you put up $1 in an account and they'll match you $1 or whatever it is. And it's a beautiful program. And that's what he was talking about. So I do want to know, why'd you go sort of double down and figure out you decide you wanted to do more there? But the one of the reasons I was excited about having you as my co-chair of Financial Literacy for All, beyond the fact that you're willing to open doors and put your reputation on the line to be a voice for others, which you've done by opening doors for these other CEOs. I think we have now 75 CEOs involved with Financial Literacy for All at the Fortune 500 level. And by the way, all the sports teams, all the sports franchises are now involved. Isn't it true that really represent all of America? Like if you're looking for Latino America, there's a big group. You're looking for Native Americans, there's a group. You're looking for rural poverty or rural communities that are underserved, that's a huge group. Poor whites, struggling blacks, middle class. I mean, you guys have even gone upscale in some of your products, try to capture some of Mayor Young's population. But isn't it true that you guys sort of represent demographically as a pulse check everybody?
We do. We look like America, and that's awesome. We love that. This morning we had a couple of hundred of our associates together from around the country that are celebrating 25, 30, some of them 40 and 45 year service awards with the company. And John, they're as diverse as they could be. Like that's what our company looks like. It looks like our country. And so back to your question, just real quick, they're using digital tools at work all the time. So what we did with our app that our store associates use is we inserted financial literacy into it, because learning about money can be intimidating and it can be an uncomfortable conversation. But by making it easy for people to access, we've already had 430,000 Walmart associates access their credit score and give us some feedback on what they're doing to improve it. And I know that's foundational and where it starts. Hey, can I ask you, why is financial literacy what you have dedicated your life to? Like, why is that your calling?
I think it's a civil rights issue of this generation. I think it's as important as the right to vote. I think it's as important. I think a 700 credit score is as important as a 4-year education in this current world we're living in. And I think, if you look at just the stats for Black American, people might say, why is he focusing on Black America? Well, that's what Dr. King initially, he was Black, obviously. I'm Black, so it's common sense. But it's also the group at the lowest level of everything. The lowest level of poverty, the lowest level of access to opportunity, the lowest levels of credit. So you start there. It also has the lowest credit score as a group, below 620 of all Black people, which means that half of us, Doug, wake up in the morning locked out of the free enterprise system. Doesn't matter whether we go to church and we pray to God and we're a good person and we pay our taxes and we're decent and we're loving. If your credit score is not at a point where you can access credit, either you're stuck with alternative credit vehicles. I don't want to go into that, but very costly. Or you're locked out completely. You can't get a good loan at 620 for an auto loan. You can't get a decent mortgage at 620. You can't get a small business loan. I don't care how brilliant the idea is, below 700, because it's a risky credit. So getting everybody's credit score up to 700, which is financial literacy, I thought was freedom. And a CEO once told me that he thought that economic and financial freedom was the only true freedom, because it's the only one no one can take away from you. And I found that to be true. And so I think it's, once you have it, no one takes it away from you unless you give it up. But financial literacy just makes you smarter, wiser, brighter, allows you to operate with dignity in the world. As Dr. King said, I am a man. It allows you to walk with your shoulders back and your head up with dignity. The color's green, as you well know, not black or white or red or blue. The color's green. And if we can get the credit score up, we get the financial literacy up, you're able to take your place in the society. And Doug, I just want to, again, to thank you for your leadership on financial literacy for all. You didn't have to do it. You made the first 3 calls to CEOs along with me 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was. And now it's got momentum, and I appreciate you. Hopefully we can get legislation in this country. I know you got to go, Doug. Is there anything else that you want to ask me or the mayor or say to the audience about why you think this moment's important, why you thought it was important to be here as a caring American? And it's also true, I want to just make for the audience that you guys have not backed off at all supporting small businesses with contracts and opportunities. That I'm saying that, but I want to make sure that's true.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I acknowledge that we were in the news in December for making adjustments to some of our programs. I've met with some of the people that are participating today and explained what's happened here. But the bottom line is we're still an opportunity company for everybody, and we're working hard to make that happen. The reason I care about this is because I believe that our country will only thrive if families feel like that the future for their children can be better than the future they've had, and not enough people believe that today. And part of the reason they don't believe that is because they don't understand how money works, and they don't feel like there is true opportunity. So awareness related to financial literacy is foundational in my mind. Successful families make successful communities make a successful country. I'm holding these green socks, John, as you know, because we've got on April 30th Green Sock Day, where Operation Hope and Walmart and hopefully a bunch of other people are going to try to raise awareness for financial literacy. I'm going to go spend time in a local school here talking about how money works. I know you're going to be out there too. Yep. These are $4.97 on Walmart.com if anybody needs a pair of green socks.
That is the quintessential retailer there. My man's always selling something. I love it. By the way, yes, April 30th, Green Socks Day. Again, I love the colors. The color's green, whether it's the environment or economics, it's something we all can get with. And Doug and my hope is, whether you're black or you're white, whether you're rich or you're poor, whether you're Republican or you're Democrat, whether you're rural or you're urban, you can put some green socks on April 30th and do something for financial literacy. Take a photo, upload it with a tag, Green Socks Day. And by the way, NASDAQ's going to feature the top post on their big board and invite the top 10 submissions to ring the bell at the NASDAQ on their closing bell in May. Thank you so much, Doug, for your leadership. I will tell the audience that when I need to ask a very important question, I need to understand something holistically, I'll text Doug, and he'll hit me back at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday and call and say, let's talk about this. So this is the real person behind the title. He's a good man, and I thank you for leaning in on financial literacy for all in this business plan for America, Doug.
Thank you, John. You're a good man.
Peace and light.
Thank you.
We have right now the Bishop for Black America, the Black Pope, Bishop, none other, for not only the United States, Mr. Mayor, but the world. You go to Africa, you go to Latin America, you go to Brazil, and everybody says the same thing. I mean, he makes traffic stop when he goes to Nigeria, where he was recently. Everybody's heart stopped when we thought his heart stopped in the first of this year when he had a medical situation. We were all praying for you. And I'm so glad that you're looking great and doing great. Literally, again, I joke, but I'm really serious. The Black Pope, the man who is a symbol for inspiration and spiritual leadership for all of us here and around the world, Bishop T.D. Jakes, who's also Chairman T.D. Jakes. He also has, separate and apart from his ministry, he's a very accomplished author. He's got many bestseller books. He's been a producer of movies and films, writing music, developing property. I mean, he just really is a great father and a great friend. And I'm honored to call you my friend, ladies and gentlemen, Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Thank you very much for your kind and warm words. I am delighted to be here on behalf of TD Jakes Group and at your request. I don't know whether you invited me because you couldn't get anybody else or what it is.
No, we just wanted you.
I'm glad you're here. Delighted to have an opportunity to address you all. America is in an interesting place right now, as we all realize, but it has been in interesting places before. It has been in times of great turmoil and tests and trials, and yet those times have proved to be times of great innovation and great creativity. And instead of focusing on the areas that give us the most concern, we have to take this opportunity to seize the opportunity for transformative thinking and work together to create a more perfect union, a more equitable society, a group of people who are working together, integrating our ideologies for the betterment of the country and for the betterment of underserved communities. I'm supposed to be leading a panel. I have the privilege of leading a panel talking about reimagining opportunity. And now is the time that we have to reimagine opportunity. It is really about transformational ideas to reshape America's economy. And we have to really be innovative and aggressive in order to get things done, because we are the people that we have been waiting on. We can't sit back any longer and wait on people to consider us. We have to consider ourselves, one, because we understand ourselves, we know what we need, two, because for too long we have had too many people making decisions about us without us. And so this is a great format, and I welcome all of you that are watching around the country and perhaps even around the world as we tackle such complex subjects. Those subjects are for us, to us, and about us. And the us is not just you and me and people who look like me, but we affect the rest of the world as well, because we are a part of one human race that we have to understand until other people understand it as well. So I'm delighted to have this opportunity.
Bishop, thank you for that. Thank you for your, not only your blessings, but your wisdom and your counsel that you have given me over the last few weeks as we were designing this program. Your counsel at midnight, often when you had a long day and the last person you want to talk to was me, you go, oh my God, here's John Bryant again. Thanks for answering the phone. Thanks for having grace and giving me wisdom. So in part today is because of you. The mayor wants to ask you something before you get to the panel, but as we encourage people to download these business plans, which are written in their format, they're formal, they are structured, they are things I think that people that are accessible for people. How important, my question before the mayor asks your question, how important, Bishop, is it for folks to focus on what they can do in their own life to raise their own GDP versus just waiting for the private sector or the government or you know, I mean, I guess I believe God helps also to help those who help themselves. How important is it for you to have a business plan for your own personal life and not just wait for somebody else to give you hope for your life?
Well, thank you for the questions from our illustrious mayor. Great to see you. Great to have this opportunity to converse with you, and looking forward to your contributions and thoughts as we continue to dialogue on this issue. I think it starts in the home, not in the school, not in chats, not even in conferences, but it starts in the home, where we begin to broach subjects that we don't normally talk about around the kitchen table. In fact, we don't gather around the table anymore. But that's a tragedy, because the first infusion of understanding the significance of money came when I was about 8 years old, and my mother gave me a passbook savings account to Canal Valley Bank in West Virginia as a Christmas gift. All the other kids, they got the cool toys. They were riding around in bicycles and stuff like that. But my mother gave me a passbook and put $50 in it and started me to saving and thinking differently about money. Mindsets control assets, and we can't start too early That's why even in our own Good Soil Forum, we include an element called Lemonade Day that is focused on teaching young people how to be entrepreneurs. I think every individual has to take some responsibility for their outcome and not just be controlled by their salary. It's really up to your own entrepreneurial creativity. That's why we're emphasizing a Good Soil entrepreneurship, because it stops us from being at the mercy of layoffs, cutoffs, setbacks, left behind, underpaid, undersupported, seldom recognized. You can tell me how much you're going to pay me, but you can't tell me how much I'm going to make, because I have creativity and talent. And if I have strategy against that creativity and talent, it equals success. And success means different things for different people. But to begin to think differently, your mindsets often affect your assets. And I think it's very, very important that we do not limit our mindset to just a job. That subsidize the job while we fight for equal pay and equal rights and the right to vote and all those other important things that need to be fought for. We still have to eat, and we still have to buy property, and we still have to have passive and aggressive streams of income. We have to begin to talk to our people about ownership and stewardship and recognizing our responsibility to take hold of our own destiny and grip it tightly and not be at the mercy of the whims of the times or the administrations that come and go. They will always come and go, some leaning toward, some leaning away from us, but we have to lean in and hear the conversations that we're about to have. The mayor has been a good illustration of that. I know how committed he is to the underserved and making sure that their needs are met. And we need to have those kinds of role models, not just mentors, but role models that we can see that climbed up the ladder and started on the same rung that we did. Because often those who had a push higher than us can advise us, but that advice does not take into consideration that you had a shovel when I had a spoon. We need to see people digging who dug themselves out from a spoon and came to the place that they were able to do what they're going to do. So thank you for that question. I see my panel coming in, and I think I better go to work so we can stay on schedule a little bit. I've got enough brain power on here to blow up the planet, and I'm grateful to have each and every one of them. I want to introduce them formally. We've got the Honorable Andre Dickens, who is the mayor of the city of Atlanta, maybe the president of the city of Atlanta. I don't know. We need to get another title for him, but we're grateful to have him. Brian Hooks is joining us as well. He is the chairman and CEO of Stand Together and president of the Charles Koch Foundation, who has really been leaning into these tough topics. He's not shied away from tough topics like entrepreneurship, like returning citizens from incarceration. They've leaned in and put their resources and relationships behind doing that. And we have been a recipient of them as well. So we're grateful to have you as well. Now, my longtime friend and brother from another mother, Van Jones, I love him to life. And he is the founder of Dream Machine Innovation Lab. I'm glad to have all of you, and I want all of you to welcome them as we come together in a collective synergy of intellectualism to the intent that we might be able to discuss and create innovative ideas and have a discussion that might stir something inside of you that causes you to be your best self and your better angels to come forward so that you can get things done. So let's jump right into this and see where we go. How can we leverage innovation to expand opportunities and communities historically excluded from wealth creation? And I'm going to start out with Brian. And Brian, if you give a whack at that, we're living in the most innovative time. And yet we're living in a time of great chaos. How can we use innovation to cause us to be upwardly mobile? Innovation, technology, artificial intelligence, and innovation that starts with human intelligence. I think sometimes we don't give human intelligence enough credit because we're so excited about artificial intelligence, failing to realize that all that artificial intelligence learned it from us. So Give us some of that brain power, Brian.
Well, look, Bishop Jakes, it's so good to be with you. And how could I answer the question better than you just did? One of the things that I've really valued about our relationship and working with you over the past couple of years is that you start with a deep belief in people, right? And that's what we learned that we each had in common when we first met. And I think that's the answer to your question. Innovation in technology, innovation in different industries, all of that is really, really important. But the only way that we are, as a society, going to benefit from the upside of all of those new tools and new technologies that will continue to evolve is if we believe that every single person has the potential to contribute to that innovation. And so, I look at this as a time of a tremendous disruption. That's an obvious thing to say. And the downside of that disruption is very, very significant. But the upside opportunity to reimagine the institutions that people rely on to be successful and to find their path to participate in the kind of progress and innovation that you're talking about is enormous. If we take seriously the barriers right now that are holding people back, that are causing tens of millions of people to be on the sidelines, it's extraordinary. Whether that's in education, whether that's in business, whether that's in finance, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. There's a lot of things that we can do to harness innovation, but the first thing that we have to do is we got to change our mindset. We've got to stop seeing the people that are excluded, the people that are struggling as problems to be solved. And we've got to start to see them for the potential that they've got. And when you start to think that way, you don't think about how do I help people? You start to think, how do I help society by helping unlock the potential in these people who are being excluded? And when you do that, you can't help but think big. You're not talking about small, you're thinking about radical innovation to improve the institutions that people rely on to be successful. That's what we're doing together with your Good Soil Project. That's what, Van, you and I have had the good fortune to be able to work together in helping to unlock the barriers of people in the criminal justice system. Mayor, I'm in Atlanta right now. I'm headed to a new restaurant in your fine city called Cafe Momentum.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great example of this. The kids that come out of the juvenile justice system that are the interns in Cafe Momentum, these are world-class individuals. Mm-hmm. They need what we all need. They need people to come alongside them and believe in them so that they can believe in themselves. And when they do, there's no limit to what they can accomplish. And so I think we need to radically re-envision the institutions in our society. And this moment of disruption is an opportunity to do that. But it starts with this deep belief in all people.
Thank you for that. And what a great statement, and well stated and well said. It is so true that we need to stop seeing people as problems, underserved communities as problems, but see them as growth opportunities. For example, only about 40 to 44% of African Americans own their own home, as opposed to 75% of Caucasians own their own home. So if you're going to build homes, if you're going to loan mortgages, this is a growth opportunity, not a problem. It's a growth opportunity for expansion, and we can do good and still do well if we have the kind of mindset that you're talking about. Mayor Dickens, would you jump in on this and just kind of share some of your innovative thoughts for society as we move forward?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Bishop Jakes. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your partnership around the city of Atlanta, and good to see you, Brian, and also Van and Mayor Young, as well as brother Hope Bryant, John Hope Bryant. It's good to see you all. Thank you for having me on here. Listen, innovation is critical. We have to leverage innovation for all of our communities. We got to make sure that we have cities and communities that provide opportunities for all. The future is inevitable. It's coming. And we have to stay ahead of the game. And how we do that, particularly us leaders in the public sector, the civic leaders, we have to understand what the private sector is doing. We have to know what the folks that move capital, that deal with technology, that understand innovative tactics and tools, what are they using? Because we need to use those in the public sector. I am an engineer. And so when I, go out, I'm thinking about things strategically and utilizing innovation. As mayor, I created the Mayor's Office of Innovation and Technology so that we can go out there and leverage what is in the private sector, whether that's investing in technology companies and startups, whether that's utilizing innovation in our housing development models. We're building housing more innovative through innovative means. We're using shipping containers. We're taking modular construction. We're utilizing rapid housing development capabilities to be able to provide housing for, whether it's homeless individuals or low-cost housing. We're doing all of that by, a lot of times we're utilizing public-private partnerships. That's something that, government traditional RFP processes can be effective, but also there's a way to use innovation to help get projects done better, faster, cheaper, and with more innovation, because the private sector has a competitive edge and a desire to stay, cost efficient, and also to do things in a more creative, unique way. And so business helps drive the ideology behind some of the government work that we're doing. Brian just mentioned Cafe Momentum, which is a very good way to help people get a second chance. It is a whole restaurant with staff that are trained and that are working, that have a record. Right now, I'm drinking Water Boys in the Hood water. We're known for our water boys, the guys that stand on the corner, and we helped them create a business. We took them off the corner and said, you can be real entrepreneurs. You don't have to stand out here in the heat and you're only making a little bit, you're dodging traffic. Why don't we get you a product that can go inside of restaurants and stores and teach you a skill so that you can go out here and you can one day own a big water company. All right. And so we're taking, kids and folks that have desire and helping to innovate. And we're doing that through some community development entities, CDEs, in our Invest Atlanta. You can look it up, investatlanta.com, and CDFIs, which have been threatened by this public administration, federal administration, but community development financial institutions are important ways for us to be able to develop in our communities in areas that need it the most. And so being innovative is a way for us to really help with wealth creation and community stabilization.
Thank you for all the work that you have done and are doing to make us have a better society. I think sometimes we get so strung up on federal government, and it's very important, but we don't give enough attention to local government, which deals with those bread and butter issues that hit the tables of everyday Americans. And being a trailblazer in that way is very inspirational. Excited about the opportunities to work with you, and we're working through some things, trying to be able to do that more efficiently and more effectively. We're excited to do that, and really, really glad. I can't leave Van out of this conversation or he'll text me and fuss at me about it. So Van, what do you say in terms of innovation? And I just saw Strive Messiah will come on. My dear friend Strive Messiah, who has done so many things with EcoNet and other entities that he runs all the way from Zimbabwe, where he grew up, to being a global leader and a billionaire and an influencer. And as much money as he's made, he's got that much brilliancy. Welcome, Strive. I'm glad they put you on with me. Makes me somebody. Van, talk to me a little bit, and then if I turn Strive loose on this AI stuff, we're going to be on fire. Come on, Van.
Well, look, I'm almost embarrassed to talk now that we have Strive on here, but I'll do a little alley-oop before he talks. I mean, one of the reasons that John Hope Bryant, my great friend and leader, wanted to do this today is because it is the anniversary of Dr. King's assassination, April the 4th, 1968, 57 years ago. And I think people misunderstand Dr. King. They think Dr. King was somebody who was trying to make history. Dr. King was never trying to make history. History in the past, he was trying to make tomorrow better. Dr. King was a radical Afrofuturist who had a vision of a Black future, an American future. That's what a dream is. It's about it's a future state. And he on the March on Washington freestyled, as a 33-year-old kid, freestyled a radical vision of Black folk and white folk getting along and children playing together. That could have been Star Trek or Star Wars. It was so beyond what we were living with every day. And that is his great contribution, is he gave us a future. And so we spent a lot of time on Black history. At this point, I would trade in about 10 Black History months for one Black Future weekend. Where are we going? What is tomorrow going to be? And so I'm very proud to have joined forces about a year and a half ago with will.i.am. We launched a campaign called Make Wakanda Real. make Wakanda real. Why? Because Wakanda in the Marvel superhero universe is an African nation that uses technology better than anyone else. They use vibranium, which are the minerals of that place. Frankly, Africa has real vibranium when it comes to cobalt and everything else that Elon Musk and these people need to run their gadgets. And they also honor their ancestors. They're also very spiritual, and they use technology in a heroic way. And so we try to put that forward as a vision because, as was mentioned, we do have AI now. But what does that mean? There are two different futures here. One is AI where it's all data and no wisdom, and could be used to replace human beings with robots and leave humanity behind, or it could be used to lift humanity up. And for the first time, we have three different kinds of intelligences on one planet. We have non-human biological intelligence, in other words, nature, which is very wise. And if we listen to her, we will be much better off. But so you have non-human biological intelligence, which gave rise to human biological intelligence, which is us. And now we've given rise to non-human, non-biological intelligence, in other words, AI. So you have three different kinds of intelligence that have to share one planet and possibly soon the moon and Mars. How are we going to make sure that the least of these, the people that Jesus referred to as the least of these, the addicted, the convicted, the afflicted, the evicted, the poorly depicted, how did the least of these prosper in a world where nature may be moving in a hostile direction when it comes to climate change, humans haven't been kind to each other, and now we have AI? And so that requires vision. That requires a future state that we can all aim ourselves toward. And I think that Atlanta in particular, Mr. Mayor, has a chance to be that Wakanda, has a chance to take some of the entrepreneurs and give them these new tools of generative AI, agentic AI, point our young people toward biotech, toward quantum, toward private space flights, toward cryptocurrency, toward blockchain. There are new exponential technologies that are coming on. And the great danger for Black folks is that we can be so threat sensitive that we forget to be opportunity sensitive. We can be so concerned about the bad things that are coming. And Dr. King talked about equal protection from bad stuff. But he also talked about equal opportunity, equal access to the good stuff. And there's good stuff coming. And there are people who are broke right now who are going to be billionaires tomorrow. People who are billionaires right now are going to be broke tomorrow because of these new technologies. And the last thing I'll say is when Will.i.am and I pushed this campaign, Make Wakanda Real, we faced real skepticism from people who were saying, well, 99% of Black folk, Van Jones, don't know anything about AI. And I said, you're correct. 99% of Black folk don't know anything about AI. And 99% of white folk don't either, because it's brand new. This is called equality. It's the only equality I've ever seen. We are all equally ignorant about all this new stuff. The future is not written, and we have the opportunity to write it together if we'll pick up these tools and use them. And nobody's done that more or better than Strive. So I will now be quiet.
Well, thank you for that brilliant dissertation, as it were, as we begin to understand that Dr. King is most noted for the I Have a Dream speech, but he made many other speeches dealing with economic empowerment, and he was really leading a poor people's march toward the end of his life to eradicate poverty, because if you eradicate poverty, you eradicate crime.
Yes.
You build better homes, you build stronger children, you build a better society. And I'm not saying that economics is the only part of it, but I am saying that when I've never been mugged by anybody who had to go to work in the morning. So understanding that a good job and a good opportunity makes a safer place for all people to live, and it's just better for a more equitable society. Now, Brother Strive, I do not know how to get to Wakanda. I've been all over Africa, but I have not been to Wakanda. But if Atlanta's going to be the new Wakanda, I'm going to pack up my stuff as soon as I finish doing the work I'm doing here in Dallas. What do you say about technology? And to be honest, I have been a recipient of the benefits of technology. It has many perils, but I would not be sitting here right now if it were not for technology and medicine. that proved that I have no bandages. I have no cracked ribs. I had a massive heart attack. They went in through my wrist and did a complete surgery on me. And I went home with a Band-Aid on my arm because of technology. So there are some amazing things that are being done with technology. I wish and pray and hope that our laws would catch up with our innovation so that we can stop evildoers from participating in that. And one of the things that we're doing, Strive, with Good Soil Forum is bringing entrepreneurs in, not only exposing them to access to capital. We're able to give what was through the last two we've done. We've given $500 million away each year to startup companies and businesses who are trying to scale and grow their businesses. And technology plays a part in it because technology doesn't get sick. It doesn't have to take off from work. It will work the late shift and the day shift and the morning shift and all of that. And for startup companies and even mid-sized companies, it can be a great asset. I realize that takes away some jobs, but it doesn't take away jobs if the people are qualified to run the technology. They have opportunities. And to those that are not qualified, we have to offer them some alternatives. Every doctor needs a plumber. You still need somebody that can get in there and wire that house for you. Technology can now build the house, but it still takes humans to put the roof on the house. And so there are great opportunities. What does Wakanda look like to you, Strive?
No, thank you, Bishop Tidi. What a wonderful, wonderful honor it is to actually see you. We were praying for you without ceasing, as the Bible says.
Thank you.
And if you ever felt like you were being lifted in your bed, that was our prayers. We love you, man. And it's also a great honor to be here to see our father, Andrew Young.
Strive, stop. Bishop,
yes.
You know, you and I know this guy. People may not know who this guy is, Bishop. This is, and Bishop knows it. Strive Masiyiwa is the sixth richest man on the continent of Africa. He is the Bill Gates of Africa, not of a country, of the whole continent. The first man to provide cell phones to black people, I believe, in Nigeria, or maybe anywhere in Africa. And now he's laying, Bishop, he's laying copper fiber optic lines. I mean, I think, Mayor, he's laying like, internet lines that you'll be doing AI across the entire continent. This is a definition of big baller shot caller. You can't say it, Bishop, but I can. Strive Masiyiwa is the man. Okay, I'm done. Goodbye.
John, you're too kind. You're too kind. We give glory to God. We thank Him for all His mercies. As it's really a privilege to be part of this conversation, because it really is part of the dream that Martin Luther King had for us. He understood the nexus very quickly between civil rights and decolonization of Africa, and the importance of our global community. And this is something we've all wanted to see realized. And talking of Africa, I'm actually in Nairobi in a hotel where I just stopped over so I could do this meeting with you. And so I will have to jump off and go. But really, I just wanted to leave you with some quick reflections on Africa that you often don't hear about. We're a continent of 1.3 billion people. We are the youngest population in the world. Our GDP is $3 trillion, just over 10% of the American GDP. But it has been growing at the fastest rate outside China. We have speed bumps, we have challenges across a vast continent, but it's also home to the largest number of Black-owned businesses in the world. It is also home to the most diverse involvement of Black people in global economy. We manufacture, we produce, we run telecommunications, we do everything that the rest of the world does. We're not exotic. I'm coming from chairing the Africa AI Summit, where I announced that we've just acquired NVIDIA chips that we are rolling out and beginning to provide the compute so that Africa's young people can begin to develop their AI applications. But already we have thousands of young African people who are building tech businesses in all our major cities, Nairobi, where I am, Kigali, Lagos, Cape Town. So yes, Wakanda exists. It is here, Van. And we are building it every day. And we're a place of extraordinary hope and extraordinary faith. The largest Christian community of the world is African. In 2021, Africa became the home of the largest number of Christians in the world. It's not the United States, it's Africa. So last time I met Bishop T.D. Jakes, I was walking in the streets in Ghana, and I thought, I know him. And I ran, and I said, hey, Bishop. And the two of us ended up doing one of the most extraordinary times we have. And of course, the streets of Accra, Bishop, full of African Americans.
Yes.
Coming home and participating, and we want you to come. We want to build our community together. Yes, we have challenges, but let us not forget that we're one global community, from Africa to the United States, to the Caribbean, to Brazil. And we stand together. We will be just fine, and our Wakanda is real. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And let us keep the dream that was left to us by our fathers, Martin Luther King, Ambassador Andrew Young, Mandela. These were all contemporaries, as we are contemporaries, and we carry the torch. No matter the challenge that we are in, we have always worked in the conditions and not against the conditions. Our progress has been built. And may this be a call to a revitalization even of our faith, TDJ. It's a time for faith. We will be just fine. And I look forward to seeing you either in America or here in Africa. You're welcome. Thank you for this opportunity. God bless you all.
Thank you. We're delighted to have you. Thank you for dropping in on us. I know you've got to drop out, but a lot of people do not realize that a lot of our AI materials are now being shipped in from Africa. Kenya's kind of like the Silicon Valley of Africa in its forward and progressive move. Google is over there. More and more people are starting to wake up that the traditional images that we see of Africa are not the images that we see of you, we see of the room that you're in, we see of the people of Africa who are doing so many amazing things. And you're right, more and more African Americans are moving to Accra through the goodwill of its president, which I had the privilege of interviewing and spending some time with. And there is an open door to lock arms and to come together in a way that's been unprecedented. And we need to continue to explore that. And just because we're all Black doesn't mean we're not, that we're a monolith. We're very diverse like any other place, both in Africa and throughout the diaspora. But that diversity does not have to limit us from having unity. And you have been one of the premier leaders in that. And I just want to honor you before you hop off and thank you for your leadership and thank you for your willingness to participate on some of the things that we're planning to have in the future that you and I have been talking about. Once it was hard to get Strive to talk to me about anything other than the Bible. So we would talk all the time. He would talk to me about the Bible. Then I messed up one day and started talking about AI, and he just went berserk. I said, "Oh, I hit the spot right there," and so I don't want to talk to you as a bishop. I want to talk to you as an ambassador of the future, so that we can talk about God and His creativity, but also talk about that creativity being exemplified in humanity, and how do we draw from that humanity in a way that you have done and have been doing for years. And building, John Hope was on there talking about some of the work that you've done. And I didn't get a chance to brag that I was in your office, pray for your mother, walk the grounds, was at Econet and at other places, and saw firsthand some of the work that you're doing and some of the young people that are taking the lead in the conversation. And thank you for being a trailblazer to the next generation. So we're really excited about that. I see John's jumped on. You want to say goodbye before he goes?
Yes, I want to thank you, Strive. I know you're in an airport somewhere in the world, and you did this. Our friend Michael Milken that literally was trying to do this from an airplane. Now that's rocking. Doing a video call from your airplane if he works it out. But I want to thank you, Strive, for doing this and stopping your world for this, honoring Dr. King's legacy, honoring Ambassador Andrew Young, of course, honoring Bishop Jakes, who is with Ambassador Young, two of our living icons in the world. Mayor Andre Dickens, you are a model, sir. Your friend, I was sitting here bragging with Mayor Paul Young. He was bragging on you. You two are both models for the country. What we're doing with you with child savings accounts, amazing. Every kindergarten kid, thanks to your leadership in Atlanta Public Schools, Bishop Jakes, has a Hope Child Savings Account. Statistics show that if you give a kid a child savings account in kindergarten, they're 25% more likely to go to college, Bishop. If you put money in that account, a couple $100, they're 75% more likely to graduate from college. Just that one act of connecting education with aspiration, that's just one of the many things that Mayor Dickens is doing. We're passionate, both him and I, about credit scores. We're passionate about community uplift. Atlanta really is a global model in the world. And thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mayor Dickens. Thank you, Bishop, for being, you don't walk on the water, but you know where the stones are. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much. I just want to give a shout out and invite all the entrepreneurs that might be listening at us. We're having our Good Soil Forum in Dallas, Texas, June 12th through the 14th, where we're going to be talking about this in much deeper detail as we begin to prepare people for the possibilities of what could be done through entrepreneurship. I was going to get into that a little deeper, but we're running short on time of what entrepreneurship and AI can do together to move us further and further along in our debate. And we've got everybody coming from Lorenzo, who founded Fear of God, to Oprah Winfrey, coming together to share experience. We're getting ready to have the biggest transfer of wealth that we have seen in the history of America, from the baby boomer generation to the next generation. But if we leave wealth without wisdom, then we're going to end up in devastation, like people who hit the lottery and 2 or 3 years later are broke. So I invite you to come and get the strategy to go along with the talent that you have. And thank you, John, for this opportunity to go this far in this conversation.
Honored. I think Mayor Young wants to say something to you, Bishop.
Bishop, I just want to say thank you, and thank you to all of the panelists, my brother Mayor in Atlanta. Good to see you. This has been an amazing conversation. Here in Memphis, innovation is, we like to say, part of our DNA, and we are constantly looking for more opportunities to elevate the people of our region. We want to take the strategies talked about today, the business plan that's been documented on paper, and we want to implement that for the people of our community to be able to elevate, such that it's a national example of how cities can come together and elevate for the people. And so, again, I just want to say thank you all for the time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Memphis so we can talk a little more.
All right, absolutely.
Hey, Bishop, you'll be proud of this. The mayor said he's going to take the plan, download it, the business plan for Black America, download it, get it to all the churches.
Absolutely.
Get it to all the the civic leaders here, and have them start having a conversation about this. So to go from PhD to PhD 2. So he's already in operations mode, building just like you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for including the churches, because I think people underestimate the role that the church can play in moving and impacting the culture, not just in terms of voting, but in terms of having land masses, building mixed income housing, doing a lot of things, equipping people with literacy and training and that sort of thing. So thank you for not leaving the spiritual leaders out, so that we can have public-private partnerships that also include faith-based leaders to transform the way that they think, seeing as we gather more people every week on a weekly basis than any other institution. What we say to them has a lot to do with the outcomes that come in their life. So I'm going to get out of the way. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
God
I'll
bless
see you
you
in good
all.
soil.
Have an amazing day.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor, this is the least time I'm going to talk all day. I don't have to say a word. You know somebody's a bad brother when he shows up with a T-shirt on. When somebody shows up with nothing but a T-shirt on, you know he's a bad brother. Look, Harley Finkelstein is the president of Shopify. It is the second largest e-commerce platform in the world. Arguably the biggest when it comes to focusing on business and entrepreneurship. Harley is a partner and friend to my other partner and friend, Toby Lutke, who's the founder of Shopify. Along with Kaz and others there, they have stood up a $130 million 10-year commitment to build Black businesses called 1MBB, 1 Million Black Business Initiative. It was stood up in 2020 after George Floyd's murder. I'm going to let Harley get into this. He's going to give literally the state of entrepreneurship and state of small business address. I literally am shut up and walk off the stage. He's going to drop the mic. This guy can go for 5 or 10 minutes without taking a breath on small business and entrepreneurship, never repeat himself, and will put everybody into a state of a trance in his vision because it makes so much sense. I actually think he's part Black because he's so cool. And in December, Harley came to me and said, we want to double down. This is December. We want to do more. They committed another $60 million on top of the $130 million for $190 million over 10 years to build Black businesses. And of course, I know the answer of why. Why would you want to do this in this environment? Aren't you concerned? I'm going to just give you a little bit of the secret sauce here. He said, look, we're just trying to build a company.
Right.
We just want more good shops.
It's a market.
It's a market. So we have 3% Black businesses. Why wouldn't we want 10% of Black businesses? Anybody who doesn't want that doesn't want our prosperity as a company. I love that answer. One of the smartest men in the world on entrepreneurship and small business is coming to you here for a master class. Welcome to the state of business and entrepreneurship, Harley Finkelstein.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, John. It is it's an honor to be here. I was listening to Mayor Dickens talk about turning people with desire into business owners and entrepreneurs. It's sort of like, Nike convinced the whole world that if you have a body, you can be an athlete. And I think what you and I are doing together with Operation Hope and 1MBB is we're convincing anyone that has ambition that they can be entrepreneurs. Strive's story is unbelievable. This idea that Africa is the home to the largest number of Black-owned businesses in the world and has the fastest rate of growth within China is wild. So I'm really grateful to be here. John is not only one of my friends, but he's also been a mentor to me and to Toby and to Shopify, and I'm just honored to be here. I want to start by talking a little bit about 3 stories that I think has shaped my journey with entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship didn't really just start with in me. It's sort of in my blood, like it is for a lot of people watching. Both my grandfathers were what I call forced entrepreneurs. And what I mean by that is there was nothing glamorous about their story. Entrepreneurship or starting a small business was just a means of survival They were immigrants to this country. We're in Canada. Neither had a college education. Neither of them had any money whatsoever, and nobody would give them an opportunity. But yet they had families to provide for. And so my father's father was a refugee. He came to Canada from Hungary in 1956 after surviving the Holocaust. When he got here to Canada, he started a little egg stand at a local farmer's market called Le Capitaine. That stand still stands today. It's not too far from where I am right now. My mother's father was in what we call the schmata business, the clothing business. The reason he was in the clothing business was low barriers to entry. He didn't have to have a lot of money to buy clothing for $1 and sell it for $2. And he did that selling clothing in the back of his car all over Montreal. And I have these vivid memories of riding around in his car while he, had clothes piled in the back. I'm sure many of you have stories just like that. But for me, on a personal level, when I was 13 years old, the only thing in the world that I wanted to do and be was I wanted to be a DJ. But nobody would hire me. I looked like I was 8 years old. I didn't know how to DJ. And so my father told me that if no one will hire you, why don't you consider starting your own DJ company and hiring yourself? And he made me these business cards, these kind of, very unofficial, but for me, they felt real. These business cards that said Harley Finkelstein DJ. And between the ages of 13 years old and 19 years old, I DJ'd over 500 parties and weddings and corporate events, you name it. And so entrepreneurship, like for my grandfathers, was once again this tool that I used to solve problems. But then I was 24 years old and I met this brilliant programmer who you mentioned named Toby in a coffee shop in Ottawa, Canada, in the capital of Canada. And Toby had moved to Canada a year or two earlier and wanted to sell snowboards on the internet. But he couldn't find any decent software to do it with. It was either ridiculously expensive to build an online store, or you had to sell it on a marketplace like eBay, which didn't really allow you to build your own independent business. So he sat down at a coffee shop and wrote this code, this piece of software to sell these snowboards. And Toby quickly realized that the code that he had written was even more valuable than the snowboard business itself. And that's really how Shopify was born. And I was in law school at the time, and I needed to pay my tuition. I had to support my family. My dad wasn't in our lives anymore. And I had two much younger sisters. My mom needed some help. And so I decided to become one of Shopify's first merchants and selling t-shirts online. And that really was the beginning of what has now been a 2-decade journey, building Shopify from this idea in a coffee shop into a $100 billion company today. Now, if you sort of think about these stories, they seem very different. My grandfather selling eggs or selling schmuttas in the back of his car to building a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded software company. But something that was the same across all these stories, that at every single juncture, there were these role models involved. I had a role model. I had a visual proof that this thing called entrepreneurship was a viable path, that people like me could do something like that. And I realized that was the key to a lot of this. My father wasn't able to support me financially when I was 13. He didn't have any money. But because he thought I could be a DJ, because he gave me the confidence that I could be a DJ, I ended up starting a DJ company because he watched his father do it. And so if his son, me, wanted to start a business, it didn't sound that crazy. And what I've learned over helping millions of stores on Shopify build these great companies is that knowing entrepreneurs, seeing entrepreneurs, it actually helps you believe that it is possible for you to do it as well. So 70 years ago, entrepreneurship allowed my grandparents to build a life in a new country around the world. It let them create opportunity when frankly, no one else was giving it to them. And 70 years later, this has never been more relevant. I think there's a lot of noise out there today, especially this week. The economy is somewhat unpredictable. The landscape is uncertain. And I don't think safety nets are always guaranteed. But yet in the middle of all of this, we are watching entrepreneurs right now absolutely thrive. This is the golden age of entrepreneurship. And last year alone, 875 million people, so 1 in 6 internet users on the planet, bought something from a Shopify merchant, from one of our entrepreneurs. And our merchants now represent about 12% of all commerce in the US alone. And every single day, I get to hear the story of someone else who has changed their life by building a business. And the reason for this is because, like I said, I think this is the golden age of entrepreneurship. The barriers to getting started right now and the cost of failure have never been lower. And I think that economic downturns, times of economic uncertainty like we're dealing with right now, they're actually the most fertile grounds for these new ideas. When traditional employment opportunities decline, people are incentivized to really kind of forge their own paths. And I think that history shows us that adversity is a very powerful catalyst for innovation. And actually, I've made this my mission, my life's work, to share the stories and to create and help other people create their own entrepreneurial ventures. And so, there's this great quote by Marian Edelman, which is that you cannot be what you cannot see. And that's exactly what excites me about first becoming your friend and then becoming your partner, John, when creating this 1 Million Black Business Initiative, 1MBB. And so, as John mentioned to some of you, in partnership with Operation Hope, we're working to create 1 million Black-owned businesses. And to date, we're now just shy of 400,000. And we help get businesses started, get them set up. We help them with mentorship. We give them all the tools they need. But more importantly, we also help them with inspiration. And I've got a chance through John to meet a lot of the entrepreneurs in the program. But one story that I love telling is someone named Keith Walker, who signed up for the 1MBB program in Operation Hope. And he founded this roller skate company called Roller Skate Detroit. And it was fascinating story. I'll tell you very quickly what happened. But during the pandemic, roller skating actually became this huge trend. And Keith saw this and jumped on it. And he started with training sessions. And with the support of 1MBB, Operation Open Shopify, he graduated into opening up his own facility, which is incredibly successful today. And these are some of my favorite founder stories because Keith took something that he already loved, a lifelong passion, which was roller skating. He'd been doing it for 40 years and decided to create a business out of it. And when Keith spoke to the 1MBB team, he told us that this program was huge for him. And what he was most optimistic about is that people are going to see his story and emulate it and create their own versions of this entrepreneurial endeavor that he had done. And I think that's really the true power of what we're doing together, John. This 1MBB movement, this partnership between Shopify and Operation Hope shines a light on these incredible Black-owned businesses that I think have the power to act as a lightning rod, this conductor for thousands, if not millions, of future entrepreneurs. And so the best part is we're just getting started with this. For anyone watching, if you have an idea in the shower in the morning and you've had that idea a couple times, this is the best time in the history of the world to start a business. And with my friend John Hope Bryant and the incredible team of Operation Hope, we're making it easier than ever. And as John mentioned, we were so bullish on this that we've actually stepped up our investment over the next 10 years. And I know we're going to hit our goal of 1 million Black-owned businesses, and I think we'll actually have many more created through this program. But it's been an honor and a pleasure, John, to be your friend, to learn from you. And now together, I think we're going to increase the surface area on entrepreneurs all over the world. So I'm really excited about that.
Thank you, Harley. And I love what you said about increasing the surface area of entrepreneurship. When I first mentioned this narrative of changing mindset to you, I'm pretty sure you looked at me crazy because we're like, no, we're trying to get people to literally start businesses. Like, what's this mindset stuff? And I don't know if you remember the conversation several years ago. I said it is as important to me to get people into the mindset of learning how to fish than not just eating a fish, somebody giving them a fish, but learning how to fish, to get them the mindset that the glass is half full, not half empty, and I can do this. Yeah. And if we can just get people to the mindset of I can do this, this is not too hard.
Yeah.
And then in that pivot alone, which is a large part of why we're doing this today in honor of Dr. King on the day of his assassination, to prove that his life was not given in vain, to prove or to answer the question, where do we go from here? He was talking about what you're talking about, Harley.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he was pointing toward. You listen, if you read his last book, Where Do We Go From Here? He was he was telling everybody off. He was setting everybody straight. And he basically was saying, everybody knock it off. Like, knock off the silly stuff. Let's get focused on outcomes. And again, I love what you're saying about expanding the surface area. And do you now know, or can you now appreciate what I was saying years ago, Harley, about the power and the importance of what many of my white friends, frankly, take for granted because they grow up in households where this is a foregone conclusion.
And not just that, but then they see more entrepreneurs and they believe it's possible. The craziest part of what we're doing is not just that we're making the tools easy, but we're making this idea that I can be an entrepreneur something more accessible. And more than ever before, the cost of failure right now is the lowest it's ever been. What that means is if you try something and it doesn't work, it's okay, because the second or third thing you do, that may be your $1 million business. And then what happens, you create a flywheel. So John, we're at a 400,000, just shy of 400,000 now. We're going to hit our 1 million goal for sure. But more importantly, through that flywheel, we will create tens of millions of new businesses. And it's a great honor to be your friend and your partner in this endeavor.
Thank you so much. Please give everybody there at Shopify my best and my thanks. You've been great. The mayor wants to partner with you, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
Mayor, we're in. Let us know how we can be helpful.
Absolutely. We'll be reaching out.
Okay.
Love you, man. Peace.
Love you too.
The baller himself is on the screen. That's Charlemagne, my God. That's my man. I assume on this one I can just shut up and do nothing.
I think you can. I can shut up too.
No, you're the moderator. I do want to say in a serious note, Charlemagne doesn't sleep. Like people sleep on Charlemagne. Like they think, oh, he's funny and he's entertaining. This brother is like a prophet. This guy is smart, wicked smart. He owns a publishing imprint with a book. They offered him a book deal, Mayor. He's like, no, I don't want the money. Right. I don't want an advance. What I want is a book imprint with a mainstream book publisher, so I can give voice to other brilliant minds. What's that girl's name? Charlemagne, the young lady. She's so smart. Tamika Mallory. Tamika Mallory. She's so smart. He gave her a book deal. I mean, he empowered himself to create a platform. Again, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to create economic plumbing for the underserved. He just by creating a publishing platform, he's creating plumbing, a plug-and-play system. He did the same thing with Breakfast Club. Look at all the people he's given opportunity to be host, co-host, podcast network, Black Effect Network, which he owns 51% of or more, along with a partnership with iHeart. He's got a media company that he just started. He's got a fast food restaurant that he started in his hometown. Is it Monk's?
Monk's Corner, yes, sir.
North Carolina. This is a bad brother, and he will call me on a Saturday or a Sunday and prick me on something, like push me on something. I'm trying to relax, and he wants to talk about the future of us, and he's the reason that I wrote the first business plan for America, which I then went on Breakfast Club to talk about. That was over a year ago, and he's the reason that I really began to evolve my philosophy on these things, and thank you for pushing me. Charlemagne, I'm honored to know you.
Man, no, the feeling is mutual. I'm just honored to be able to, tap into you, as a mentor and just, somebody who has done this for a long time and is, economically empowered so many of us, whether folks know it or not. So, I just love to be able to call you on a Saturday to get that information, my brother.
My deep honor. One of these days, people are going to recognize that you are much more than the top radio personality in the country. But I know you don't.
I don't care if they do or not, because
I know that's what I was about to say. That I know you don't care.
Like I'm about that action. I rather stay low and keep firing. They always say if you build in silence, people can't stop what you're doing. So I don't have any. I don't care what people think about me in any way, shape, or form. I let the results speak.
Well, with that said, I guess John, shut up. So now we can get to it. Charlemagne, it's a privilege, man, to be able to rap with you on this Friday and a very important topic, Dream Forward, in this panel, redefining wealth, achieving economic freedom and self-determination. And I don't think there's a better individual between us that, represents that very well. I followed your career very closely, being from North Philadelphia myself, and so very familiar with your radio history. And here you are now, as John said, one of the top radio personalities, but not only that, but a cultural voice, right, within Black America, within America, period. You go around on social media, you see your comments, you see how much you engaged. I've learned a lot from you on the early days of Twitter, so it's definitely a privilege to be able to have this important conversation with you right now.
Thank you, Jabari. I appreciate that.
Hey man, listen, thank you. And listen, I want to open this conversation up, man. And the way I like to run my panels is that it's more engaging. I can't see who all is watching, so it's like a conversation between me and you. But you know, when I talk about economic empowerment all the time, and I'm reporting on it, you know, there's various definitions of it. But I like to ask you and start this panel off just with that. When you hear that phrase, economic empowerment, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
For me, economic empowerment just means that, you know, you have a skill set, you've tapped into your skill set, and you found ways to, you know, profit off of your skill set, and not just profit off your skill set as an individual. You know, that skill set has enabled you to build something that other people can profit off as well. You know, one of my favorite mottos is, if, you know, whatever you build only benefits you, then it's not big enough. You know, I think it's one thing to empower yourself as an individual, but it's another, you know, to have a skill set or have some type of, you know, talent, or just to build something that helps, you know, other people as well. So that's what economic empowerment means to me. You know, something that helps you as an individual, you know, create something not just for yourself, but for others.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, this was supposed to be 2 or 3 other people on this thing, but it turned into a fireside chat between us. So again, man, so much to cover and so much, so little time. But you know, listen, I think it's fair to say that you have a nice income. You made a nice bit of money, and I cover that for a living at Forbes.
God is good. You know, my mom told me a long time ago that was very freeing for me. You know, my mom told me that, you know, you've accomplished, you know, 'cause my mom is a school teacher from Moncks Corner, you know, South Carolina, and you know, my father was in the construction, you know, and you know, he always had a hustle, whether it was a fish market in Moncks Corner or something. But my mom told me that, you know, you've accomplished more than everybody in the family has, but just be happy to be making a living.
Absolutely.
That's how I always carry it. Like, you know, God is good. I'm just happy to be making a living.
Absolutely, man. And within that living, when we look at the actual, you know, title of this particular panel, redefining wealth, right? When did you redefine what wealth meant to you? At what point in your career? I mean, I think we all, you know, especially coming from certain backgrounds, you know, financial empowerment, financial literacy is still it's a stranger to us. You know, I was talking about this with John O'Brien not too long ago. And so we may be behind the 8 ball a little bit, but when did you redefine your wealth? When did it kind of really started to make sense in a different way?
When I started to realize that, you know, wealth in a lot of ways is subjective. You know, like, you know, there's people that are living in South Carolina right now who might be making $50,000, $60,000 a year, but, you know, they got a roof over their head, they got food on their table, and they're happy. You know, they're able to, you know, take a vacation once in a while. They may have a couple of dollars to put into the stock market, but more important, they might have, you know, just enough to make sure that they're, you know, they have childcare, or, you know, just to be able to afford the type of car, you know, that can get them from A to B, but the main thing is that they're happy. So, you know, for me, you know, that's what wealth really means to me. You know, you're doing what it is that you love to do, or whatever you're doing, you're just happy doing it. That's why I always even tell people that success is subjective. Like, what's success to you may not be success, you know, to another individual. For me, you know, it's just, I feel good just waking up in the morning. You know, I feel good being able to wake up in the morning, say my prayers, read my daily affirmations, do my meditation, you know, do my therapy, you know, once a week, and just have a peace of mind. That's happiness to me. So when we talk, you know, when we have these conversations about wealth, you know, we can't just keep them in the financial aspect of the conversation, because I know a lot of financially wealthy people who are not happy. In any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, you know, coming from the world where we have to cover money all the time. You know, you look around certain rooms, like, man, you have all of this and you're still not happy. Well, what the hell is wealth? You know, when you talk to a lot of people, celebrities, you know, politicians and all of that. And, you know, John told us to keep politics out of it, so we're not going to go down that road. But are there any misconceptions that you always hear when it comes down to wealth building? Because, you know, again, we're in this age now, and I understand the equity conversation. I think maybe that's went a little bit too far, and people lost track of what that is. We'll get to that in a minute. But what misconceptions do you often hear that maybe isn't talked about enough when it comes down to wealth building? Keeping in mind the mentality and the mental part of it?
I think the biggest, problem with wealth conversations is that, a lot of us in our culture, we take business advice from people who ain't got no business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of people out here, there's a lot of people out here making money by telling folks how to make money, but the people they talking to not making any money. Right. So it's just like I always tell John, one of the reasons I like him is because he actually has a business. And I think that's the main thing we have to do when we're listening to people have these conversations. Like, okay, it's one thing to talk, but what do you actually do? What is your actual business? Can you point to your staff? Can you point to your board? Can you point to how much you paid in taxes for your business last year? Like, there's a lot of different, things that go with running a business. And a lot of these so-called, gurus out here just spreading a whole lot of misinformation, but they don't have any foundation to stand on. So the first thing I would tell anyone when they're listening to somebody talk financials, see how that person actually makes their money and see how long they have been making money doing what it is that they're doing. If they're making money, if their hustle is making money telling you how to make money and you're not making no money, that's probably not somebody you should be talking to.
Yeah. And, that's a perfect, segue, because later on, but I'll get to it right now, I was going to ask you, I think we're getting out of this cancel culture, conversation that we're in. But at the same time, is it anything that within our culture that needs to be canceled when it comes down to that economic empowerment? Like, what needs to be canceled for us to move forward? I was looking at a Wall Street Journal piece, and I believe it was about $70 trillion, right, in wealth transfer that's happening right now up until 2042, right? And so when you think about the next big wealth transfer post 2042, what needs to be canceled within this culture right now, our culture, so that way we can be a part of that economic empowered, a part of that economic balance?
What needs to be canceled is listening to people who don't have any business. Listen to people.
Was that the thing?
Yeah. Listen to people who are actually doing things, who have already, made money in the past. They've built businesses in the present, and they're looking towards the future. Like, there's plenty of people that you can talk to right now that can tell you exactly, where things are going as far as, the economy is concerned. They can tell you exactly where things are going as far as business is concerned. But, we got to be willing to listen. And one thing that's the problem now is everybody is an expert. So you can have somebody come on a platform like the Breakfast Club, like whether it's a John Hope Bryant or Damon John or any of these people who have already done it, and they can tell you how they've done it and they can tell you where things are going. But then you'll have a bunch of people who've never done anything, all in the comments telling them that they lying, they wrong, they don't know what they talking about. Why would I listen to those people who've never built anything opposed to listening to people who've actually built something? Like right now, this is a fantastic event, the Dream Forward event, a new business plan for America. This is John continuously doing something. He's been doing something for years with Operation Hope, but now today is another day where he's continuously doing something. Why wouldn't I listen to an individual like that? Like, all we got to do is pay attention to the people who, already walked the path. That's it.
Yeah. According to Nielsen, Charlamagne, man, and I always bring this stat up, and I was just talking about it with John at the NASDAQ. We were talking, but according to Nielsen, by next year, Black America's spending power will reach 2.1 trillion, right? Let that sink in. 2.1 trillion. That is bigger than the GDP of Mexico, tied with the GDP of Canada, our two trading partners here in North America. When you think about that figure, in 2026, that our spending power in Black America will be 2.1 trillion. What comes to mind?
The same thing that's, come to my mind forever. When I first read Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when you study what, Marcus Garvey was doing, when you think about, just the whole do for self motto. We've been talking about unity and group operation forever. Black people have been talking about, pooling their resources forever. Black people have been talking about, supporting each other and, spending with each other forever. So when you see all of that money that we're spending making other people rich, it's like, why don't we support our own? We don't need anybody else. Like, we are absolutely positively enough.
Yeah. Right fast, man. You're from South Carolina. Again, you spent time in Philly. You're up here in New York, as am I. But a lot of times we miss what's going on in rural America. I live with one might consider in rural America right now in part of Jersey. I've been down to Tulsa. I've seen the food deserts. I've seen the bank deserts. When it comes to economic empowerment, we always talk, it's urban cities, it's big cities, we focus on them. But is there anything that you're saying in rural America that's not being discussed, that's not being addressed, where if it was, it can help us reach that economic empowerment that much faster?
Well, rural America is the real world.
That's right.
Like, I think we have this, that's another big misconception that, America looks like LA and America looks like, New York City. The reality of the situation is no, America looks like Moncks Corner, South Carolina. Like those are, working class people. I grew up on a dirt road where, my first white friend, who's still my friend to this day, his name was Thomas Evans. And, him and his father and his mother used to live right next door to, my mother and my father. And, it wasn't about race. It was about class.
That's right.
That's literally what it was all about. It was about class. And, one thing that we all, was instilled in us was just working hard because we didn't know any other way. And, we talk about entrepreneurship, some of my first entrepreneur endeavors was, walking around seeing who needed their grass cut. And that's what we all were doing, So I think, one of the just, that's the biggest thing that I think that people need to learn from rural America, that, those folks, we definitely exist. And, when you can talk directly to them, especially if you're Black, because in the South, what, 60% of all Black people in America live in the South. So if you want to actually see what's going on, in Black America, if you want to see what the soul of Black America looks like, you need to be in those rural areas, in the South.
Yeah. I'm not going to take up too much time. I want to end it on this, John, because there's another part of that conversation, part of this title, that I definitely wanted to get your opinion on, and that's that self-determination part. When you think about the self-determination part, I mean, that's the definition is a group of individuals that does things for themselves, right? They make the choice to control their own lives.
Yeah, okay.
When it comes to that self-determination, how can what needs to be fixed in our culture for us to get past that hurdle? Because again, that it's a two sides of the economic empowerment. The self-determination, part of it is the other one.
So, Jabbar, are you asking me?
I'm asking Charlemagne, yeah, but then we can shift it back to you, John.
No, so first of all, Dr. Bernice King needs to go lay a wreath for her father in a couple minutes. So I'm gonna we're gonna let her speak. But Jabbar, thanks for doing this. Look, yeah. I wanted to say this. I don't know if people are sleeping on Charlemagne's brilliance. He said a couple of things here that I think are the most important things, arguably, in the entire session today. He said one thing that success is different for everybody. And you're making $60,000 a year, you're able to buy a modest house, get the car you like, or, an apartment or whatever works for you. You've got your kids, on a positive track. You're happy. Good. Cool. That may be the model for most people. So, but we want to make sure that you got the power and the self-determination, the agency, and the tools to go do those things. That's why we produce this business plan for Black America and Latino America and Asian America, et cetera, and rural America. The second thing is he's had a white friend his whole life. I've had white friends my whole life, Latino, Asian friends I grew up with. The biggest population of poverty is still poor white. Nobody knows that. So this is a good segue to Dr. King, because her father gave his life fighting for not just the rights of Black people. The political campaign was about everybody, including poor whites in rural America. So thank you, Charlemagne. Thank you, Dr. Jabari Young, and now Dr. Bernice King.
Dr. Bernice King. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to take away from her.
Oh God, that's funny. You know what, John? I've got to run out to the wreath laying that we're doing here at the King Center. If anybody wants to tune in to my IG account, they can around 3:30.
Beautiful.
But I just want to say this. This has been a rich day, and I want to thank you for interjecting hope in a time, a very difficult day for me, a difficult moment in time as we remember the day that my father was assassinated. But more importantly, injecting hope at a time when people are feeling hopeless. Their heads are spinning. They don't know what's going to happen. But today, you interrupted on a very important day And you were in alignment, obviously, because the weather patterns that you talked about being consistent with the weather patterns on the day that my father flew into Memphis and ultimately lost his life there, proves that he's with us in this moment and pushing us toward that dream. So thank you for helping us to push the pause button on the noise that's happening in our political arena, and helping us to tune into hope and opportunity and solutions. If you feed yourself too much negativity, it'll just grow.
That's right.
But if you feed yourself hope and you cultivate imagination, curiosity, ambition, and ultimately you tap into the soul, you awaken something in people. And so in this moment in time, it's important. We talk about innovation. It's there in all of us.
That's
and this is the best time, as has been said throughout the day. And what I appreciate most is that all of the conversations were really about enriching people. It's about the green, but it's really about enriching people, and the green follows. The green comes with that. And so I just want to say that to you, my friend, and thank you again for helping all of us to understand that we can unplug from what's happening in the world and get ourselves together, because we are very powerful.
That's right.
In our DNA, as the brother from Africa said, there's a lot in our DNA, and all know we all trace back, regardless of our race. We trace back to the mother.
That's right.
Africa. So God bless you. Thank you. Hello, Senator, Pastor, Reverend Warnock. Good to see you.
Oh, my sister.
Yeah, good to see you.
Great to be with you.
Yes.
We love you. We love you, Dr. Bernice King.
Love you.
Thank you,
so
Dr.
much.
King.
God bless you.
Blessing.
So I get to brag on my brother for just a moment. Janae, thank you so much for doing this. This is your show. I'm going to shut up and let you be a pro. But I want to brag for a minute on this unique human being. By the way, we have 100 delegates that are watching, founding delegates watching online. You'll be reading their documents as they publish them over the course of the next few months. Danya Diaz, who is with Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z. You've got Curly Dossman, and I mean all these heroes and shit. Jotaka Edie, just all these heroes and sheroes. There's too many to name, but please go online and look at these names. They're pretty. Lorraine Cochran Johnson, CEO of DeKalb County, first female CEO of DeKalb County. Dr. Ben Chavis, Melanie Campbell, amazing group. But this guy here, doctorate in theology, fifth pastor of Ebenezer Church, which is Dr. Martin Luther King's church. Can't make this up, Mayor Young. Pastor Young would say, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. What's the chances? You got Dr. Bernice A. King, the daughter. You got Pastor Andrew Young, the strategist. Online, you got Reverend Jesse Jackson, his kids. The kids are trying to find a way to get on before we end to say something. We're honored by that. You've got the bookend. Now you got the future. You have the past story, the narrative. Here you are. This guy bridges the past and the future. Fifth pastor at Ebenezer Church. In addition to that job, I believe the first U.S. senator from the South. I don't know if that's the case, at least in the last 100 years, of the U.S. Senate, and on the banking committee, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a voice of reason in the right season, able to talk to everybody, bridging gaps. Thank you for running from your vote to come back to be with us. You are brilliant. You are absolutely brilliant, and I love you so much, and we're so honored that you're there. And I was just meeting with Secretary, who, by the way, bragged on you as one of the people that they thought really was a very rational voice always. You're hard on them, which is you're supposed to be, but you talk without being offensive, you listen without being defensive, you leave even your adversary with their dignity. So I just want to personally say, much love.
Thank you, dear brother John Bryant. Always great to be with you. and you're much too generous in your introductions, but I appreciate it. And it's wonderful to be here.
All right, John hopped off, so I'll take over. I'm Janae Norman with ABC News. It is a pleasure to be here, so thank you to John and Mayor Young. Senator Warnock, thank you for joining us. We've also got Killer Mike Render, as well as Alex Rodriguez, who's going to be joining us also. Appreciate those balloons, Mike. Senator Warnock, let's start with you because I know you have to jump off soon. But as John was saying, you're an incredible man. Aside from your duties as a U.S. state senator, you occupy the pulpit of the very congregation that Dr. King led. And for many years, you've advocated for the least amongst us. What types of successful initiatives or programs have you encountered, and what would you like to see that would help advance economic growth and achievement for all of us?
Well, thank you so much, Janae. It's wonderful to be here with you, and so grateful for the genius and gifts of my friend and brother, Michael Render, Killer Mike, as he's known, A-Rod, brothers, both of whom can do things and that I can't even begin to think about. But great to be here with both of you. Listen, as John pointed out, I've been very blessed in my life. Pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, a PhD, United States Senator. I mention those things not to brag on myself, but just to point out the fact that I understand personally the importance of good public policy, which is why I decided to run for the United States Senate. You're looking not just at a U.S. Senator, you're looking at a kid who grew up in public housing, in the projects. You're looking at someone who was a Head Start baby. So I'm an alum of Head Start, which a program which is being shuttered right now. Even as we speak, it is very short-sighted on the part of the administration. The best investment we can do is in our children, particularly our kids between the ages of 0 and 5. Head Start gets kids ready for kindergarten and keeps them from ending up in prison. And you're looking at an example of that. We should be expanding Head Start, not following the awful blueprint of Project 2025 and dismantling this program, which Dr. King, whom we all remember today, would be supporting and advancing and calling on us to expand. Let me just take a moment and just pause and acknowledge the sacredness of this day. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. We are sitting here on holy ground this day, April 1st, 1968. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., as was the case of the one whom he served, Jesus the Christ. No one could take his life. He laid it down. He laid it down for the vision of a broader vision of what our humanity could be. We all know that Dr. King lost his life today, but I think it's important to remember why he was in Memphis in the first place. He was fighting for workers. He was fighting for the working poor. There was a local movement and they were trying to gain steam and they were struggling. But on February 1st, 1968, 2 sanitation workers, Robert Walker and Ethel Cole, were literally crushed to death in the compactor of their truck. Think about it, it's 1968, civil rights law has already been passed, supposedly integrating public accommodations. But the reason this happened in the first place is it was a torrential rain. They were not allowed to go into the facility and find shelter because segregation was still in place de facto. And these young Black men, ages 30 and 36, with families that loved them, were crushed by their trucks. And as is the case so often, the crushing of the poor, in this case, literally fueled the movement. It attracted a weary Martin Luther King Jr. who was busy planning the Poor People's Campaign. He said, I better make a detour. And he made his way to Memphis, first in March, came back in April, and walked into destiny as a result of it. All of these years later, the poor are still being crushed. Later tonight, I will literally be on the floor of the Senate voting all night, trying as best we can to slow down, to stop an awful budget that many of my colleagues are focused on passing. It's going to cut Medicaid by $800 billion. When you talk about Medicaid, you're talking about children, you're talking about seniors and nursing homes, you're talking about the disabled. We've got to capture the vision of the man whom we celebrate today. And let me just say that I have not lost hope. My story doesn't allow me to give in, to say that all is lost. We've seen tough days before. When I was born, Georgia was represented by two segregationist senators. One said, we love the Negro in his place, and his place is at the back door. Well, I sit in his seat. And so we have to stand up in this moment, fight for the best in the American spirit, make sure that we create a path for all of our children. For me, that's Head Start. For me, that's the expanded child tax credit. For me, that's workforce development program that I'm working so hard on, and so much more.
Senator Reverend Warnock, we appreciate you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We know you're going to be there for that Votorama later. So thank you again. We also have Ray McGuire, who's joined us. And Ray, I'm sorry I didn't introduce you from the beginning, but he's one of the highest ranking, longest serving Black executives on Wall Street, currently the president of Lazard. So appreciate you joining the conversation also. All of you, all three of you, have committed your careers to using your public platforms to drive awareness, not only awareness, but to solutions to the challenges of expanding economic opportunity. Ray, I'll start with you. Mr. McGuire, you've had a distinguished career in financial services and helped author the definitive report on the cost of Black inequality when you were at Citi. What was the most surprising thing that you found when compiling that report, and what types of solutions would you prioritize?
First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for all that you do in representing the excellence in the world of journalism. I'm honored to be here with other panelists, all of whom I've had long-standing admiration and respect, and of course, the leader here, John Hope Bryant. And the report that you reference is one that is in fact overseen by research and reported and written by a Black economist by the name of Dana Peterson. And so I should acknowledge Dana and the work that she did, and what I think is probably the definitive piece on the impact of the inequality that exists in the system. And when I wrote the foreword of that report, I was honored to invoke the letter from a Birmingham jail by Dr. King, who reminded us that we are caught, as others have probably referenced here, in the inescapable network of mutuality, tied in the single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. And so to that as a background, if I look at that report, what it did reference and what it disclosed was that if the wealth gap based on wages, education, housing, and investment were closed 20 years ago, that would have added about $16 trillion to the US economy over that time period. It also says that to the extent that we close that wealth gap today, that the addition to the US economy would be $5 trillion over the next 5 years. And that was written in 2020, in September of 2020. Those numbers just get amplified more by where we are currently. And as I think about the fundamental response to the question about where we can go from here, it rests and resides on what got us here, and that is the world of education. The huge opportunity that exists today, given the latest report on how Black and brown boys and girls are performing in the public school system and the actual opportunities that exist there. So would I were to be an investor, which I am, where I would make the largest investment would be in the world of education. Education, not only in the classic sense of the academy, but education in terms of, as some of the panelists have referenced, the skills, the hard skills. Today, if I think about where people can participate in the middle class, there is a lot of opportunity for plumbers and for electricians and for HVAC people and for welders. These are professions that exist
where there is a tremendous amount of respect and need. When you strike a leak in your apartment, you can go and be a handy person and think you're going to Home Depot and Lowe's to get, but you better call a plumber. When the lights go out, you're looking for an electrician. The air conditioning don't work, you look for an HVAC person. And so these are opportunities that have historically been in our community. And remember, today we're trying to get away from, or we're transitioning to back to a manufacturing-based economy. Let's reference what this means. The height of U.S. manufacturing took place in June of 1979. 1 in 5 Americans worked in manufacturing. Today, that's 1 in 20. And so we've transitioned from a manufacturing-based economy to a service-based economy. Wages have gotten lower. Our ability to participate in the middle class has been influenced by that. So the way we go forward, one, focus on basic education. How do we get our kids from pre-kindergarten through 3rd to 8th grade? How do we get them such that they have a basic skill set to participate in mainstream economy? And once as we're accomplishing that, also offer skills that are tangible skills. I am clearly a proponent of getting higher education, but to the extent that that opportunity doesn't exist, and to the extent the opportunity that our children don't want to go that path, let's give them other paths. There are other ways to the middle class. There are other ways to wealth that don't necessarily reside in the Ivy League. And I'm okay with that. I come from the neighborhood. You know, my mother was a social worker. My grandfather went to school until he was aged the 3rd grade and then taught himself how to read by reading the Bible. So I understand the fundamentals of what's taking place today in our society. It gets captured in the report, yes, but it also gets lived out in realities of our neighborhood. Where do we go from here? Education.
Mike, I want to bring you in because I saw you nodding along, cheering to a lot of what he was saying. What do you agree with? But then also talk about your types of businesses that you've chosen to invest in your overall philosophy and business strategies.
First, let me pay my just to the gentleman I'm just blessed to be here with today, Raphael Warnock, who I campaigned for twice. When me and my wife were a younger couple, we danced the night away on Saturday and go sit in the parking lot to church open and go in his church and sit in the top pew and we're still together after all these years. So he's a friend and has a place in my heart. Man, A-Rod, come on. You already know I'm a nerd and Braves fan, to the point I felt weird not having on a Braves cap when I realized I had on the Philly ones. I said, let me go get this pen and cap from this other little company that I like a lot. And Ray, just, man, you're preaching a sermon right now. In that, you know, sometimes, man, I was raised by people who, you know, to all the people out there, put it so I can't see all of you anymore, but I'm trusting you guys are seeing me as it has me just seeing myself. But my grandparents raised me. My grandfather grew up in 1922. My grandmother was born in 1932. So these people were 10 years apart. My grandfather had to drop out of school, and this is to the people beyond the folks I'm looking at. I have said for the last 10 years or more, the things that I've heard from the two men who've spoken, and I'm sure I'm going to hear from Alex as well. I've said this in earnest and in honest ways to hip hop, to the culture of hip hop, and to young Black people who are filing to be the next level of leadership. I am blessed to have grown up in the closest thing to the fantasy of Wakanda you could have had in Atlanta, Georgia. They had two conferences here in the early 1900s, 05 and 04, or 05 and 06, W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. And essentially, they always get represented in our community. It's these two radically different mindsets. One was for the talented 10th, and for the Ray McGuires, for the ones who were going to become the best of us. But they didn't realize that the other, in a fertile ground, is what Booker T had in a Tuskegee Tuskegee College environment, where some people were going to make the bricks. And they were going to go to school and they were going to get their degrees in some type of trade, and they were going to build the infrastructure that you needed to house a college that would give you your engineers, that would give you your agricultural masters. I literally grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in a neighborhood where I grew up in a 900 square foot working class house, and a dump truck driver and a nurse, you know, born in the 20s and 30s, raised these kids and their cousins in. And within 3 streets of me was the richest Black family in the Southeast, in the Russell Empire. So I have seen a life of heroes and villains that all look like me. I've seen a life in which I've understood that more of what happened to me was less circumstance and more choice when put in the circumstance. I understand the importance of making sure, like Warnock said, that we support being able to get our kids educated and fed properly in pre-K because of a woman named Miss Harrington. If Miss Harrington didn't own Harrington Daycare Centers, the entire West Side, which has always been poverty blighted because you had all the Black people together from the richest to the poorest. But those kids went into kindergarten reading. And Georgia's not even required to go to kindergarten. But she was sending kids into kindergarten, into the LP Miles, into the Collier Heights Elementary. And she was sending kids in there reading because she knew even if they were hungry after they got home, if they could read, then eventually they were going to be able to be employed. If they could master a trade, eventually they would be able to become the working in the middle class. She understood her importance in the chain. I felt like my teachers, and I only had African-American teachers except for 3 my entire life. I went to schools named for Frederick Douglass. Our competitors was a school named Benjamin E. Mays. I grew up in a place where all was not fair, but opportunity was abundant. And the teachers acted as though it was their life's mission to help us realize our potential. Because I went into school a reader, because my teachers poured into me, that excellence was not something you could have, it was something that was expected of you. Because, Alex, I realized that I wasn't good at sports like all my other friends. I have a national championship, the national champion as a friend. I have a Super Bowl winner as a friend. I have a lifelong NFL, two other brothers as friends. But I knew I was just not running fast as my friends. I knew I wasn't going to study hard or practice hard, but I knew education would give me away. And eventually I worked my butt into Morehouse. But when I was working my tail off to try to get into Morehouse, I joined civic organizations. I understood that intelligence meant less of an opportunity for people to treat you badly. I also understood that if I could organize 3 of us to cut grass, we could cut more yards, we could make a bigger bounty. And I understood the trade of cutting grass like no one else. Doesn't mean I didn't do some dumb things, make some mistakes. But what I realized on the west side of Atlanta, the side of Atlanta that got people like Reverend Warnock into office, people like Andy Young into office, people that helped get Jimmy Carter into office, these working class, decent Black folks. You know, some was an angel, some was crooks, but everyone was together and everyone wanted to see these kids do well. I realized that Frederick Douglass, my principal, Dr. Samuel Hill, who was my personal Joe Clark, he wanted me to understand that Frederick Douglass understood with this quote, something that for the rest of my life changed me. It is easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And I absolutely agree with what Raymond was saying, because I have been saying to my people for a decade, let's turn toward the trades. They're going to need us. I would rather have a plumber that understands the saying of Socrates than a nephew who understands Socrates only and cannot use a hammer and nail. It is high time that we understand Tuskegee as an institute was meant to teach people how to grow seeds out the ground and teach people how to engineer and be architects and have buildings. It's time that we understand that there is no better or worse. There is no 90th and 10%, that we're simply together. So my philosophy, even in business, has not been as grand as Raymond. I've not been as fortunate to be as willing to work hard and be an Alex, or to preach the word and be one of the best politicians Georgia's ever produced and Warnock. But what I have been is a responsible student of the knowledge bestowed upon me by the people in front of me, the people, including and not limited to the people like John Hope Bryant in my life, down to Ms. Pritchard, my elementary school teacher. I learned to reinvest and to constantly invest in the things, the people, and the stories around me. When you hear about me and T.I. opening Bankhead Seafood, we did not want to get into the sexy restaurant business and be the latest players on the move, making $80 million a year off a brand. We were not trying to be the new Noble. We knew nothing of that. What we knew was there was a woman who owned Bankhead named Miss Helen Harden, who had a business for 50 years. And at some point, she just said, I can't do this anymore. And she called who she could call, and that was her local rapper, T.I., and said, how would you like to buy this business? And T.I. called me and said, how would you like to buy this business? Because we understood that we weren't just buying a fried fish spot. We were buying a story and a legacy for a part of town which is now gentrifying. New people are coming. But if there's going to be a restaurant row, why shouldn't Miss Harden's restaurant stay on that row? Why shouldn't it be the first restaurant with a rooftop that people can walk to within 9 to 10 minutes of their house, and they don't have to take that $30 minutes north or south? So what we bought was a story. What we bought was an opportunity to master one store to get people. And that was kind of like my philosophy, period. When it came time to get into real estate, I bought in the same neighborhood I grew up in. I knew it was only 4 miles from downtown. I knew that I had married a smart woman because she didn't let me buy a car. She made me buy an apartment building. Tip, in similar fashion, bought the old Kmart that everyone used to shop at and go get ice cream. He's turned it into a 149 housing units. I think 20% affordable, if not more. We just reinvested in where we were, and where we were was fertile ground of working class Black folks. Where we were, much like Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver in Tuskegee, was good enough for us. And that's what we did. And that's just been my philosophy, and it'll continue to be. I try to invest in where I'm from in places that remind me of that. And that's where good, decent people need products and services. Something I'm very excited about this year is I bought a barbershop off Craigslist 12 years ago, and my wife didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. And it was because I said, well, I bought a shop. It was only $6,000. I sold one of my cars and did it. She said, yeah, dummy, you could have just let them go out of business and got the space yourself. And I was like, damn, I never thought of that, right? And that's when I knew I had married the right person. This woman from Savannah, Georgia, whose grandmother ran the Shot House and the Housing Project. I married her, but she helped me think about money and look at things differently. So in the last 11 years of owning a barbershop and getting to know the community, helping politicians like Warnock getting elected, arguing over baseball, people in there talking about Ray McGuire, my brother's out the AUC talking about they want to be the next you. What I discovered was the barbershop in the Black community is a social center. We're the first barbershop to be in a NBA arena. We're in State Farm Arena. You can come get a cut, but more than just hang out with other members of your community you might not live next to. Besides being a social center, we've been a place that a brand is created. COVID sent us into a place where we were like, how are we going to keep it, going? No one comes to get their haircut, but people bought T-shirts, and we started doing local artist collabs with people like Mike Giant and Trico. We started selling bars of soap, and people came back and said, we want more soap. And what we're growing into is a brand. And this year, later, we're going to roll out a whole product line called the Shave, Wash, and Groom Shops line. And I'm very proud of that. So everything I've done has kind of been out of either very local to my neighborhood or neighborhoods like them. Everything I've done has also been in, if I'm growing a brand as a rapper, if they can pay me to sing and dance and sell a bar soap, why can't I create my own bar soap? And I look forward to just being a student under John Hope Bryant and as a mentee and learning more. And I married a businesswoman, thank God. I told her my ambition is to make her Oprah Winfrey and me just kick it with Stedman all day, So I married the right person. I am constantly a student. I have a modest set of businesses now that I'm growing, and I'm very proud to have been asked just to be here and give testimony today.
Amen. Thank you for sharing all of that. And Alex A-Rod Rodriguez, your personal story of how you learned about money and finance and you use those lessons to build a significant portfolio of investments, not only impressive, but it's super important and speaks to what Charlemagne was saying earlier about learning from the people who've done it. Can you share some of your journey with us?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be among this beautiful group of people and successful people. I'm inspired by all of you. I've studied some of you, and I wish I let off because you guys put a lot of pressure on me. I would first start by saying that, I'm a lot more like the folks that are watching this and the folks that we're trying to inspire. I grew up, I was born in 1975 in the shadows of old Yankee Stadium. My father was an entrepreneur and he had a shoe store at a house. They used to call him a human calculator because he was really good with numbers. And he was also a former baseball player, both Dominican, so I'm first generation Dominican with brown skin. And my mother, I saw her wake up every day at 3:30 in the morning, work at General Motors. She would have to take 3 trains and would come home most nights after dinner. And in 25 years, I never saw her miss a day of work. So I definitely got my work ethic and my inspiration from her. And then when I was 10, we kind of ran into some tough times. My father left us, and that left my 2 siblings, my brother and my sister, with a single mother, who then had to take on 2 jobs. And sometime when I was around 12 years old, we're at the local supermarket, and the bill was about $75. And I'll never forget this. Like, I remember this like it was yesterday. The bill was around $75. She reaches in her purse, she pulls out $55, and then she goes into another pocket. And to this day, I call it funny money. And I remember asking my mom, I said, Mom, what is that? That's like Monopoly money. And she looked down with a lot of shame and said, little Alex, this month the government's helping us a little bit. And it was at that time that I realized that I needed to be, while the youngest in the family, I needed to be the alpha and the leader. And I knew that the way out of that situation that we were in, because mom was getting older, was through financial literacy. And it was at that point that I thought the American dream was leaving me and leaving our family. But then I realized that the American dream is not about wealth and success. It's truly about grit, resilience, never giving up, and taking measured risk when you don't see or you don't really know what the outcome is going to be. And then that shifted to really being a great beneficiary of great mentors. I'm a real believer of you're an average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And for me, that person that changed my business life was Irving Magic Johnson, a 6'9" point guard that ran Showtime with Pat Riley and company. And when I realized that a man of color that looked like me, that acts like me, that is great at one sport, I thought, well, if you're great at one sport, and we've all gone through it, is they're going to limit you to just that. But here's a guy that went from his Laker shorts to his pinstripe suit in the business room, and has created a multi-billion-dollar platform. And we sat down 25 years ago, and we were supposed to meet for 30 minutes. He had a dinner with Mrs. Johnson. And that turned into a 3.5-hour dinner, where I still have 9 pages of notes where he shared his playbook with me. And to this day, I still use that playbook as my kind of business Bible. And today, one of my greatest thrills is the tens and tens of athletes and entertainers that I talk to that reach out to me daily, where I get a chance to mentor them and share my stories, just like Magic Johnson helped shape my story. Now I'm in an opportunity that I can bring other people in the room with me, my same kind of people, and really think about equality and really advocating about financial literacy. And it's really about learning people, showing people how to win, showing people the rules of engagement, the importance of education and knowledge in business. And like one of the panelists said here, you don't have to have an Ivy League education to be a big winner. You can really find your way through education, grit, falling, getting back up, falling, getting back up. But learn those lessons along the way is really what's going to keep you moving on forward, because it's never a straight road to the top. It's really about, and I think baseball in many ways has shaped my business career, because I'm used to failing. If you fail 70% of the time, you go to Cooperstown. So I just keep going at it, and never giving up, and really getting to know people, getting to know my weaknesses, my competitive advantages, and then putting that in order to work and create a second career that I have for myself after baseball. Thank you.
Alex, thank you so much. Mike and Ray, I want to ask you guys before we let you go, what's your hope for the future, and what are you both most optimistic about? Ray,
so why don't I can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I have a, shall I live in hope, all men I hope live so? The answer is yes, I do live in hope, notwithstanding the challenging times that we are currently facing. I'm reminded of, one of the great generals, General Ferdinand Foch in the French in the World War I, who said, "They're attacking me on my left, my center's retreating, I'm on the attack." And at a moment in time where all seems dark, there's always joy tomorrow morning, joy in the morning, as the Reverend would tell us. And so I look for improvement and focus in education. I look for improvement in making certain that we recognize that, as Killer Mike has said, it's not only the 10th, but it's in the 90th, it is all of us together. And so my hope is that we recognize that our better days are ahead of us, notwithstanding the challenges that we have incurred and are incurring today. And that as we share forums like this and the experiences that we've had and the wisdom that we've gained over time, that we can continue to move forward in ways that, notwithstanding how difficult the waters that we have seen, we have been here before, and we will not only endure, but that will prevail.
Ray, thank you so much for being with us. Alex, I know we're running over and you have to jump. Thank you for sharing some of your playbook with us. John, I'm going to let you take over. I got to grab a kid from the bus stop, but thank you so much for looping me into this. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Alex Rodriguez, thank you very much, Janae. Appreciate you. Janae, I want to say a little bit about the panelists. I wanted to say that they were on screen, but I hope they can still hear me. First of all, Janae is an incredible force of nature. If you aren't watching her on the network, you should. I've been with her a couple of times on her weekend show. Please watch her and support her. She is the future, and obviously a good mother. So go on about your business. I want to acknowledge Alex Rodriguez, first, best I can tell, in the U.S., first Latino billionaire in America. If he's not the first and only, he's one of 2 or 3. I don't know of another Latino billionaire in America. That's Alex Rodriguez. And he didn't make that money. He made his money in baseball. He built his wealth, Mayor, in real estate. Everybody you know who's black or brown, please listen to me, audience. Everybody you know who's black or brown, that were in sports or entertainment, Jay-Z, all these people, Beyonce, sports or entertainment, Dr. Dre, who became a billionaire, did it because they transitioned into business. So Alex Rodriguez is a model for an entire generation. I want to acknowledge him and thank him. He's always showing up in Atlanta for our forum, or whatever we ask him for free. Killer Mike, who just was on the screen, let's bring him back on if we can. Killer Mike is, and he has a problem with the name. It's stuck. He's like, my name is Michael Render, right? but it's almost like there's two Mikes. There's Killer Mike, the rapper, which, by the way, one of the few rappers I can understand. I love his music. I listened to his last 2 albums on repeat. That probably the most played tracks on my car are Killer Mike's albums, because not only can I understand them, he's teaching. I mean, he is educating and teaching as he's singing and entertaining. It is brilliant. This guy is off the chain smart. Killer Mike, Michael Render. Killer Mike is the rapper. Michael Render is behind Killer Mike, and his wife Shayna is next to him. Behind every successful man is an exhausted woman. Killer Mike's off to the side. Michael Render's off the side, advising Killer Mike, the brand, about how to be a good businessman. He told me, Killer Mike told me that Michael Render told him one day, I was on the freeway, 4 o'clock Tuesday. I was driving on 85, Mr. Mayor, around the airport. I know exactly where I was. And he told me, the heck with this rap stuff. This is cool. I love it. I'm going to be the Jay-Z of the South. You remember that? and you're well on your way. And by the way, Jay-Z's team is on this call as a founding delegate. I mentioned Danya earlier as one of the delegates, and of course, Jay-Z is a model for all of us. And then, last but not least, Mr. Mayor, I got to give some love to Ray McGuire. Ray McGuire is one of these people. First of all, he's the only black man to be president of a major investment bank on Wall Street today. It's called Lazard. Please look him up. The president of Lazard, a major investment bank, not the minority division, not the I'm letting the black people group, not the, affirmative. No, this is the company. And he was vice chairman of Citigroup before that. And he issued a report, Mayor, that showed that discrimination against blacks alone from the year 2000 to the year 2020 cost the U.S. economy $16 trillion. It was not, I love math because it doesn't have an opinion. That's a Melody Hobson quote. And that got Wall Street's attention, because now, wait a minute, hold on, discrimination is costing us revenue, it's costing us money.
Money on the table.
We got to knock that off, right? So, and Ray McGuire is one of these guys who is really the only one. I see Ambassador Young is waiting. He's going to bring us home. Ray McGuire is one of these guys that call at 10 o'clock at night. I guess he said, if you call me, then I'm going to tell you exactly what I feel. And I say, how you like this business plan? And he'd push me, not enough. How are we going to do this? How are you going to achieve that? I'm like, well, look, we don't even have a business plan. Why are you jamming me up? Like, at least it's something. He's like, no, that's not good enough. And he would push me. Every call, he'd push me to be better. So I thank you, Ray McGuire. I thank you, Killer Mike. I thank you, Alex Rodriguez, all of you heroes and sheroes. Now, on to the man, the myth, the legend, the living legend, 120 honorary doctorate degrees.
120. Wow.
The first congressman elected to Congress at that time since Reconstruction from the South. Mayor of Atlanta for 2 terms after, of course, the iconic mayor that created black wealth and created the city that was too busy to hate. Here comes Mayor Young after that, opening up to the international community. Brought the Olympic Games to Atlanta in '96. By the way, my wife, Shatra Bryant, is on. She's one of the delegates because she's chairwoman of the National Minority Health Association. She helped to design the uniforms, the NBA uniforms for the '96 Olympic Games, because she's a designer as well. Coincidence. Ambassador Young brought the Olympic Games here because he had all the votes, because he was co-chair of the Olympic Games, because he was the UN ambassador, first black man to be UN ambassador in the history of the United States of America. Presidential Medal of Freedom, U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom. By the way, there were 5 of those in Atlanta, 5 Presidential Medal of Freedom awardees. French Foreign Legion awardee. But most importantly, father, friend, husband to Carolyn Young, father to great kids, Bo Young, my brother, his daughter who just gone into heaven, Lisa Alston. Right arm to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the strategist for the Second Reconstruction, and one of the framers, I think, of the American freedom story. Ambassador Andrew Young helped to bring us home. We have a special surprise after Ambassador Young. We're going to also, I'm told, going to list all of the delegates, all 100 founding delegates. Their photo and image and name will be put on the screen. I want to thank all these heroes and sheroes who've been with us. And Ambassador Young, if you can give me 1 second, I was going to mention a couple of names just now. Sean Wilson, Mayor Randall Woodford of Birmingham, Ryan Wilson, Dr. David Wilson, President of Morgan State University, Darren Williams, CEO of Southern Bancorp, Tim Welsh, Tim Winnis, Ben Vereen, the actor, Ken Welsh, Mayor of City of St. Petersburg, Dr. Udoka, Dean of the Business School at Clark Atlanta University, Karen Slade, Mark Solis of Invitation Homes, U.S. Congresswoman Terry Sewell, Maria Support of the Supporter Report, Stephen Ryan, Lisa Rice, President of the National Fair Housing Alliance, the president, by the way, of the Legal Defense Fund is on. She's a bad sister. Natosha Reed Rice, Chris Ray, the president of the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, my fraternity, Richard Phillips, dean of the Georgia State University, Stephen Reed, mayor of Montgomery, who's president of the National Conference of Black Mayors, Michael Phillips, Charles Phillips is one of the most underrated people you can think of. I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's certainly a centimillionaire. He's black, and he's a bad brother in technology. Sherelle Parker, mayor of the city of Philadelphia. Nicholas Perkins, CEO of Perkins Management. Again, Stormy Norman Nixon. I'm going to stop here. Bob Nass, Janae Nelson. Again, she's the president of the NAAC Legal Defense Fund. Monique Nelson of Uniworld. I'll stop here. Mark Marial, president of the National Urban League, and we'll come back to the list. Ambassador Andrew Young. Hold on. You're on mute, my man. Stand by. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
This has been wonderful. I've been in it from the beginning.
Museum, yes. Attention all museum, yes.
Let me just say that thing that I've been running through my mind is, what are the little things that we can remember? And I remember that I grew up with the Irish grocery store on one corner, an Italian bar on another. The Nazi party was on the third corner, and a Chevrolet dealership was around the fourth corner. And I lived right in the middle, and my brother and I were the only black folk, only black children in the block. My daddy was a nonviolent man before nonviolence was possible. And he said, look, you don't have to change all these people. You just have to live with them. So don't get mad, get smart. If you lose your temper in a fight, you lose the fight. And he used to slap me every now and then, and just to taunt me. And if I swung back at him, he slapped me upside the head and said, see, you lose your temper, you lose your head. That got me a long way. I went to see Martin Luther King to see if I could help him. And I don't know what I wanted to do, but his secretary gave me a box, an egg crate of mail. Must have been over 1,000 letters in that, and said, the one thing Dr. King needs is somebody to help him answer his mail. You here in Atlanta and your wife's not here, you get in trouble if you stay alone in Atlanta. Take these letters and write them and answer them. And that's how I got to know Martin Luther King. I didn't say anything to him. He didn't even say thank you. His only question was, how did you know what I wanted to say? And I said, I've been listening to you. But I met somebody and I did something. I remember meeting John Bryant, and I had a terrible headache. And I think one of the reasons why we're still friends today is it was a splitting headache. And he just left me, borrowed somebody's car keys, went to the drugstore and got some aspirin. And I made it through that speech. And the thing about this has all been wonderful, but now we got to do something. I don't give a damn what you do, but do something. Go home and kiss your wife because you haven't done that in a long time. Go home and say to your children, I love you. You are somebody. Call somebody that you pissed off and it pissed you off. And that you really gets on your last nerve, and give them a call and say, look, we got to make something out of this world. And so we can't waste any energy disliking each other. One of my favorite messages, one of the first messages I remember was Franklin Roosevelt. Yeah, times were difficult. It was right out of the Depression, and the Japanese had just bombed Pearl Harbor. And he said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Martin Luther King said, truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. But that scaffold sways the future. For behind the dim unknown standeth God, within the shadows keeping watch above his own. You are God's child. And you can't do a damn thing about it but be a good child. God has blessed you. Go and bless everybody else. Amen.
Man, amen, amen. I love this dude. By the way, do you guys know he's 93 years young? So whatever y'all complaining about, you got a headache or your feet ache or your butt ache or your side ache, he's on a plane every week. Fighting for you. Fighting for you. How dare you? How dare you say you're tired? How dare you say you had enough? No. If you can do it, you certainly can do it. Let me tell you my best Andrew Young story. So I love to Carolyn Young, by the way, who's my sister, love her. And that's his second wife. His first wife, Jean Charles Young, who passed on to glory. That's the mother to Bo Young, Andrea, and the children. And Ambassador Young and Jean, he had just become UN ambassador. So he's gone to the small town that his wife grew up in, and there's a parade in his honor. And so he's in this Cadillac, and he's sitting in the back, and he and Jean Charles Young in there, and everybody's praying. Oh my God, Ambassador, oh, this is fantastic. And Jean says, Andy, there's that guy over there, the bum. That was my boyfriend in high school. And Ambassador Young said, well, you know, you could have married him. And without missing a beat, she said, yeah, if I had married him, he'd be the UN ambassador for the United States of America.
That's amazing.
By the way, you can't make this up. Dr. King's wife and Andrew Young's wife were born and raised in the same little small town of a couple thousand people. What's the chances of that? That's all God. I want to end where we started. I want to thank Mayor Paul Young. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope that this was an adequate way to honor Dr. King's life and legacy and the life he gave so that we might have life. The 57th anniversary of his assassination at the Lorraine Motel, the National Civil Rights Museum, which is now taking guests from all races and creeds of people. We wouldn't have had this without you, Mayor. Right upstairs where Dr. King was assassinated. I will be touring it. When you come to Memphis, you should tour it. Take a moment to know your history. Watch that last speech that he wrote, that he gave, the mountaintop speech. Read his book, Where Do We Go From Here? And as Ambassador Young said, be about something, do something. We're going to read the names of as many names as we can of the founding delegates. We're going to scroll the images and faces of these founding delegates. You'll be hearing. Go to the website, download My Business Plan for America, Business Plan for Black America, Business Plan for Women, Business Plan for Asian America, Business Plan for Latin America, Latino Americans, Business Plan for Native American Indians, and Business Plan for Rural America, and a Business Plan for America. I wrote them all. If you don't like them, blame me. And you can change them, adapt them. It's open source. You can sit at your kitchen table with your family. Talk about it. Sit with your girlfriend. Sit with your fraternity and your sorority. Go to your barbershop. Go to your nail salon. Talk about them. Spread them. Share them. And then move on them. And then this group of founding delegates will start taking this framework and putting meat on the bone in the next few months. By the way, there's papers that are, I'm told, from the founding delegates online also you can download. You'll be seeing more documents from them being loaded over the next few months. This is not over. This is the beginning. And at the Hope Global Forum in December, we will come with a more refined version of this. I want to thank Emory University, the economics department, and the leaders there for backstopping this plan, along with the business school at Clark Atlanta University, where I'm on the board at Clark Atlanta, for putting meat on the bones along with the founding delegates. We end where we started, Mr. Mayor. You invited me here after I was chastised by Roland Martin and others. I want to thank you for hosting us.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you for convening such an amazing and timely dialogue. As mayor of the city of Memphis, the city that I love, I know that there are so many Memphians that are able to benefit from this business plan. As we were having the discussion, I was thinking about just some of my daily routines, and I think about going to the barbershop like Killer Mike talked about, and I see this woman who comes in with a tub full of all of these freshly baked cakes, and she's been doing it out of her trunk for years, and she's looking for ways to be able to elevate and do something over and beyond just selling it out of the tub in the barbershop. You have laid out an opportunity for them to begin to tap into opportunities to take those visions and dreams to scale. And that's what we want for the city of Memphis. And I know that there are so many communities that are just like ours, with people that are looking for hope, looking for opportunities to be able to elevate beyond their current circumstances. And today has been amazing. I want to thank the National Civil Rights Museum, President Russ Wigginton. This is a very, very, very big day for the museum. It's a hallowed day. It's an important day in Memphis. City offices are closed in remembrance of what took place here 57 years ago. And so we want to thank the National Civil Rights Museum for allowing this to be the epicenter of a conversation that's intended to change the world. These business plans, please do go download them. We want you to take them, criticize them. That's right. When John Hope was texting me, he said, "What's wrong with it? Tell me what I need to do better." Criticize them, figure out what you think is wrong with it, and add what you want to it.
That's right.
Because these plans are for you to be able to elevate your community and your circumstances. I'll read a few more of the names, but we also going to have them on the screen as we get ready to close. There were a number of founding members. Mark Morial, you know him, the president and CEO of National Urban League. Peter Morris from Simply Ball. Hala Model Mog, the CEO of Woodruff Art Center, the Jonathan Moody from Moody Nolan, Scott Mills, Erica Mitchell, BT and Atlanta School Board Chair, Roland Martin, who you've heard his name, Brian McGowan, Dr. Michael Lomax from the UNCF, Veronica Maldonado Torres, the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We have the Grand Basilisk of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Ricky Lewis, Milton Little Jr., CEO of United Way in Atlanta, Boris Kojo, we know him as an actor.
Yep.
Ade Lamar, a broadcast radio personality, Una King, and the list goes on. We have the names now up on the screen. Please check out the rest of the names. And again, please go download those business plans today. Thank you all so much.
And I'm going to pick up where he's left off. Eloise Clementek, who's CEO of Invest Atlanta. Tishara Jones, mayor of St. Louis.
Text me.
Toyanne Julianne, who runs Tips Businesses. Beverly Jones, mayor of Stone Mountain in Georgia. Milton Jones, this is a bad brother, who is CEO of 100 Black Men of America, and I believe he's also chairman of the UNCF. Those are volunteer jobs. Yeah, they take all of his time. Derek Johnson, president and CEO of the NAACP. We mentioned him earlier. Kwame Johnson, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Atlanta. Dr. Brian Johnson, CEO or superintendent of Atlanta Public Schools. Brad Johnson, a famed restaurateur, a second generation restaurateur. He's brilliant and co-chair of our Restore Hope work in LA. Dr. Kevin James, president of Morris Brown College. You hear the music, that means they're trying to run me out of here. We have just a great list of heroes and share. Congressman Jonathan Jackson, who was going to come on with his dad, but we missed that opportunity, but giving him respect, and Reverend Jesse Jackson. Go online to see all of the heroes and sheroes. Dr. George Frazier, Hill Harper, Henry Ford III. Oh my God. Caroline Follen of Emory, Chrissy Furshow of Wells Fargo, the highest ranking Black female at Wells Fargo, Alan Fleischman. Young Dro was on the entire time watching, the rapper. Thank you. I mentioned Danya Diaz of Team Rock, and Dr. David Dalton, who's a businessman and happens to be my father-in-law. Also, Cynthia Day, CEO of Citizens Trust Bank, female. Greg Cunningham of U.S. Bank. Doris Crenshaw, civil rights icon. Doris Crenshaw, the head of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Miss Holmes, Melvin Coleman, CEO of Atlanta Black Chamber. Kalia Colette is the owner of a female WNBA team, and she's a member of the executives at Dallas Mavericks. Kelly Coffey, former CEO of City National Bank. Natalie Cofield of the Association for Enterprise Opportunity. Yes, you get the picture. James Brian Howard, you get the picture. Dr. Jamal Bryant. I don't mention Dr. Jamal Bryant. I won't be able to go back to Atlanta, Georgia. If I missed your name, blame it on my head, not my heart. It's been incredible. Dr. William Barber. Got to give him his respect and his flowers. Absolutely. Leading the Poor People's Campaign. John Banner of McDonald's. Leroy Abrams, which is the highest ranking Black at Regions Bank. Which you won't know his name, but you should. Wamimo Abbey of Isuzu, which is a Black man from Nigeria running $1 billion company. All these people we don't know. And Mayor, the drop the mic for me is when I did these plans, let's focus just on the Black plan. I'm done. It's all in the documents. If you do nothing, net worth of zero by 2053. If you want the government to save you, maybe they will, maybe they won't. $300 billion to $600 billion maximum assistance of the federal government, even if they lean in by 2053. If you raise the credit scores 100 points nationwide, our people, $750 billion. That's between double or at least 150 million more than what the government can do, and we can do that ourselves. $800 billion for home ownership. $800 billion plus $750 billion is $1.5 trillion. And you don't need the government to do it. You can do that yourself. And artificial intelligence, that's another trillion. Buying businesses of folks who are retiring at 65, they're profitable businesses. There's nothing wrong with them. Just buy it. That's another trillion. Yeah. That's $3.5 trillion in wealth. And very little of that requires somebody else to help you help yourself. Drop the mic. In honor of Dr. King, we're walking out the building.
Thank you. Thank you all.